Welcome to the Flawed, Foolish and Fantastic Podcast.
I'm good, thank you. I just want to say thank you very much for coming on to the Flawed, Foolish and Fantastic Podcast. And basically the Flawed, Foolish and Fantastic Podcast is to speak to those individuals who are fantastic, giving something back to the community, whether it's Sikh community, Punjabi community, the larger community, or doing great work within themselves and helping others. So me and Amandeep Singh here, we're the Flawed and Foolish. We've come to learn from the fantastic today. The big thing that I have with regards to this podcast is to find out about the individuals behind the fantastic work that they do. A lot of the times we focus on the fantastic work, we know about institutions, we know about things like that. But what I want to talk about is who you are, get to know who you are, what's moulded you into the individual that you are today and all the work that you're doing. So myself, I just want to say thank you very much for coming on. And thank you so much for letting us into your house and ruining the place and taking over for a bit. And I really do appreciate it.
We know each other for a while now, many years in fact.
Yeah.
I can't really accept anything that you said is true because genuinely, no formalities, I've got a lot of love for you, a lot of respect for you, and I owe you a lot for the stuff you've taught me during the stuff, many things that I've imparted into the world that you just spoke about. So I won't accept that you're the fraud and I'm the fantastic one, but I'll let it there out of respect for you because.
Might be giving the 10 I promised him for saying that. Cheers, thanks very much.
Right,
so before we go any further, before you start, I want to start on you. So my first question with regards to finding out about you and how fantastic you are is finding out who is Amandeep Singh.
I'm not really sure. I never really speak about myself, brother.
Exactly, that's why we're here.
Okay. I'm 30 years old. I'm a commercial litigation solicitor by profession. I've stepped back from. I'm a consultant mainly now. We've stepped into other businesses. Business-wise, I'm very, very grateful to say a successful property business that we've started. We were buying small properties, doing small conversions into a loft, rear extensions. We're doing them sort of on the side as I was developing my property career.
Yeah.
And over the years, it became quite apparent to me in my singing that what we would do on Saturdays and Sundays was actually making us more money than the actual full-time job.
Yeah.
So at some point, it made sense to sort of step back from that and start contracting on property. And then me and my business partner, my brother, Amandeep Singh, who's actually a really great guiding light in my life as well. We bought some land in East Town, which is Greater London, and we had to go at a sort of small to medium sized development, and with a bit of grace, it was successful. And we've built this development, and on the ground floor of that, our newest business has opened, which is a coffee shop.
Okay.
It's supposed to be something on the side, but it's taken over my life. I love this place.
Okay.
Just a quick name drop if I don't mind.
No, please go ahead.
It's VE6 on Instagram, VE6 Coffee, and it's a not-for-profit coffee shop. The best coffee in the manor. You cannot get better coffee than that. Yeah. And so I went on the barista courses and all that, and just to make sure we had all an understanding of the underlying understanding of coffees. So I was sort of litigation solicitor, property construction, coffee barista, if it makes sense, business-wise.
I'm just that husband and dad as well.
Yeah, husband and dad. Although to be fair, that's really them taking care of me. So So that's what we do for work. A rather clumsy answer. I hope it'll do you though.
No, that'll do. Well, we'll start delving into that now. Well, with regards to that, the thing you completely missed off, and I know what is a question that I'm asking is obviously who is Amandeep Singh? You've given me a broad spectrum of who you are today, but tell me about your childhood and background. I know you're 38 years old, so you've got 38 years to talk about.
It's really interesting, bro. So I was born into a family which I'm really grateful for. I've got a very loving family, but let's just say my youth and my childhood is a very distant, far away place from where I currently live right now. So to give you an idea, my uncle is one of the most prolific landlords in the manor of pubs. He owns most of the sort of the biggest pubs in East London.
Yeah.
Like the rockers joints that are really hard to manage. You think of like Patrick Swayze and Roadhouse. My uncles sort of run those sort of pubs.
It's not like Albert Square.
No, not Albert. Not the Queen Vic. Yeah. Think more. I'm trying to think of a depiction of think more like heavy rock and metal. Lots.
We've
of
got
fights.
like the Bolturners Arms in Leicester, which is your biker gangs.
Yeah.
They use that sort of pub.
Yeah.
It's one of those that you go into if you are either from a couple of the gangs. If you go in outside, expect to get your jither slapped.
I'll tell you, you could like it too. Have you seen that? Have you seen A Bronx Tale?
Yeah.
You know the bikers that go in and they would go in to smash the place up.
Up.
It's a place where those kind of guys go.
Sounds good.
And my uncle's the kind of guy that will throw them all out basically.
Yeah.
So growing up around the pubs, behind the bars,
Yeah.
and on the pool tables.
Yeah.
So went to a school. I went to a primary school and a senior school in Epping, which is a village in in Essex. I remember being at school, being asked by one of the kids in young years if I was Chinese, and I was like, no, I'm not Chinese, because I'd never seen a brown person before.
Yeah.
So like, we've heard about black people, we've heard about white people. You're not black or white. Are you Chinese? Genuine question that they asked my brother.
So I'm guessing the ethnic minorities were very, very few.
There was two black kids
Yeah.
in my school.
Yeah.
In my school. From memory, and I was the only Asian person
Okay.
there. So it was like a lot of hanging around the street corners, a lot of sort of recreational drinking, a bit of recreational drugs there, and just having a lot of fun at sort of clubs in the younger years.
Yeah, social clubs.
Well,
or boxing clubs, or gangs, or
more like
street gangs.
more nightclubs at that time.
Oh, that's right. You've jumped that from school very quickly, right?
No, at school we were sneaking in.
Daytimers and night times.
Daytimes was not really something that interested me because we would go to the clubs at the night time.
Okay. How old were you then?
Okay,
that's fine.
Yeah, 16ish.
I was expecting I'm 11, man.
No.
Exactly, yeah.
I was like 16. My brother got me an eighth of weed for my birthday.
Yeah.
Well, that was basically where we were at.
Yeah.
You're 16 years old. Here's an eighth of weed, which is a measurement of.
Yeah.
Well, for those that don't know, I won't educate you on that, perhaps. But
I can educate you.
I'm sure you can run.
An ounce is 28 grams. Half an ounce is 14 grams.
It's the cost I'm hearing about on the street now. An eighth is 30 quid.
Well, it's 3.5 grams.
Well,
yeah, so it's a lot more than that. It depends where you are. I'm now a qualified drugs expert.
Okay, that's why you're in. Okay,
so I do these in court.
Well, I can tell you from my legal experience that I'm well past limitations, so you can't arrest me for any of these offences.
Okay.
But so it was recreational drugs,
Yeah.
a lot of fun, really. I'm not sure if I can elaborate on that too much.
Well, like I said, it's up to you to what you want to elaborate on. Like I said, so you're growing up. Okay, you're around. What you're telling me is you're growing up around areas of lots of drink, lots of boozing, partying within the pubs. You got social life within playing pool, going out, doing stuff like that. Yeah, you use weed. I don't think that's a big issue these days. I think everybody's like, how old were you then? So you were 16 years old, 1998?
15, 16 years old, yeah.
1998. That's fine. Yeah. I'm just trying to think of when weed was...
It exploded after that.
Yeah, exactly. So within the mid-90s, it sort of exploded.
Yeah.
It came in about 93, 94. London was 92. So yeah, I'm just trying to think. But yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Well, I don't even think it's a big deal these days.
No, exactly. So what I'm saying, so you've got from school where they thought you were Chinese. How did you deal with that for a start?
Do you know what? It was really interesting. There was a lot of racism in school, but it wasn't called racism.
Yeah.
It's really strange. It was just a normal way. So I'd be called a Paki, for example, but it wasn't a derogatory. It wasn't like everyone would laugh. Don't get me wrong. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't enjoy it, but it was like. It was just acceptable that I could be treated like that. Yeah. And so because it wasn't wrong, I didn't feel like I was being treated badly. They were calling me a Paki because I was. Yeah. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it was a term used and you sort of accepted it. It's not like you liked it, but you just like, yeah, they're calling me.
Yeah, I mean, the best way I could describe it was when I had friends that were nice to me, it was like, you must be really nice because you know I'm a Paki. Yeah. It was like, notwithstanding the fact that you're Asian, I'm still going to be your friend. So there was almost like a sense of, you're doing me a favour. Yeah. And it was and that was rife with teachers. There was a lot of racism with teachers. I remember teachers being quite some teachers, not all. I mean, I remember teachers. There was a racist undertone, I will say. Yeah. But to be honest with you, I don't regret any of it. I'm actually really grateful for it because I knew that there was a different standard in some of those classrooms, not all. Yeah. And I'll come on to that in a minute when I say some. It just made me push really hard, and I was really, really grateful that I had two teachers in particular that were a massive influence on me. When I say a massive influence, I mean this very specifically. 2 teachers in particular, I think, have specifically directed the course of life that I went on. And that was my English teacher, who spent time with me outside of school, educating me about how to progress, because she could see I had a bit of talent.
Yeah.
And my form teacher, they took me aside and they said, look, why are you behaving this way? You could be doing so much better. But because it was such a horrible environment, and in some respects, I really tried harder.
Yeah.
And I knew that it was not an even playing field, and that if we all got caught doing something wrong, I'd get a bit of a harder rap.
You're dealt with differently.
And not explicitly, but it was just an undertone.
Yeah.
It was not. I couldn't pin anybody, but it was just that way. And so, because of the negative environment, it pushed me, and because of 2 teachers in particular that really gave me a lot of support, I did really well at school, actually.
Yeah.
Notwithstanding what I'd just gone through, how I could describe I was going through it, and I did really well at school, and that helped me sort of progress thereafter.
Those 2 teachers who saw something in you, did they push you towards any extracurricular activities, or push you towards? Did they guide you in any way? That
I'm going to name them now. Miss Kinsella, she was my English teacher, right? Yeah. She didn't take me to what she recognised was that I had a skill with language. Yeah. And so what she would do is after school, or during her lunch hour, she'd spend that hour with me. Okay. When she weren't getting paid for it, and she'd go, look, and she'd show me. I can actually still visualise the papers, and it says, for students aiming for A's or A stars, this is what you've got to do. Okay. And then she goes, I haven't got time to teach this in the class because it's not going to be relevant. Yeah. But I think you can do this. And I think because of her, I got straight A's pretty much. And that was in terms of the academic aspect. The other teacher was Mrs. Pacey. She was my form tutor, and she would cry because she would see me trying to fit in. Yeah. And act like an idiot to try and fit in and appease those people that would otherwise be mean to me. And she took me aside. She's crying. She goes, why are you trying to lower yourself into the dumps just to fit in? Be proud of who you are and succeed. And remember, she was the one that actually got me to listen to all the other teachers and actually turn it around. Funny little story actually. So a few years ago, I wrote her a letter, Miss Pacey. Yeah. Because someone had said to me, who do you credit for your being successful in your legal career? Yeah. I was like, it was that teacher. She took me out of the classroom and she was crying. I remember thinking, Miss, why are you crying? Because she could see I was massively acting like a prat, basically, trying to fit in to avoid someone pointing out my colour. I was too busy trying to make them laugh. Yeah. That's exactly it. I was trying to make everyone laugh, so they didn't point out my colour and acting like a twat.
That's nothing unusual. We all use a human mechanism in order to prevent any sort of aggression. And you see that YouTube, you see Just Rain, who's a YouTuber, and he said, I was the comedian. He goes, when I got into any sort of trouble, I tried to make the bullies laugh. And, you sort of lower your standards. I get told that at work, it's like, why do you act like that? You're like, because that's just the way, that's the level I'm at in order for nothing to happen. So you sort of assess that level. So you sent your teacher.
So I wrote her a letter. Yeah. What happened was I wrote her a letter to say thanks, Miss, for so much. I cannot thank you enough because I literally changed overnight through her conversations and stopped trying to play up to the crowd and just basically really went at the academics. Channel my energy into that to beat the system rather than trying to appease the system. And I wrote her a letter. I went to school, but she'd retired. Okay. So I was walking around the school and they were like, hey, can I help you? I was like, I used to go here. I was looking for my teacher's classroom to go and see her. But obviously schools all changed now. It's all metal bars and I could just walk into my school before and it'd be fine. So I gave them the letter and they promised to forward it on for me and I put my email address on there. Yeah. And then a few months later, and it was a few months later, she emailed me back.
Oh, that's wicked.
And she goes, I got your letter. And I took her out for dinner.
That's wicked.
In down the road in like a really nice Italian restaurant, and she was crying out. She was crying her eyes out, and it's really interesting. Actually, it was such a painful experience for me because we don't think of teachers as people. Yeah. We just think that they're just people that we think of them as objects that turn off. Yeah. You go home and then you come back the next day and turn them back on. Yeah. And she remembered all these little nuanced things about us in the classroom 20 years later, X number of thousands of students later. I was like, Miss, I'm so sorry for being a prat. And I had a really meaningful dinner with her. It was quite emotional to have that opportunity to say thanks for turning my life around and helping me straighten myself out.
No, I understand. I put a post, it was on Facebook and Instagram sometime. My college tutor was exactly the same for me. I was I was at
Really?
college, we used to mess around, whatever. So I'll put up a photo because my daughter's at the same college now. So I saw her there and I keep in touch with her on Facebook. She called my mum in a number of times at college. Because she was like, it doesn't turn up at registration. My mum was like, I don't understand, I drop them off every day. I was just like, I can't be asked. You know, so she had me in for that. She was so nice to me and she pushed me. And then when I was applying for the job in the co-ops, I contacted her. I said, will you give me a reference? She's like, well, you were one of the worst students we've ever had. But yeah, she's wrote me up. She's just been amazing, and still to this day I keep in contact with her. So I can totally understand the influence of such a person on your life. And I understand what you mean. Teachers, most of my teachers are just white noise. I don't remember them. But those who impact upon you, you remember them to the day. Yeah.
Massive. So those two particular teachers, my dad's got this. Me and my dad have very different outlooks on life.
Yeah.
My dad's sort of like old school, hard old school East London. Just you know, he could sleep in a bed of nails and it wouldn't affect him. He's just a really hard man. He's grown up sort of fighting the National Front, whose headquarters were in Barking.
Yeah, not far from here.
Obviously, growing up with my uncles, my dad in particular, who's like a very recognised community figure for his ability to stand up against physical bullies and stuff like that. And but notwithstanding that difference between me and my dad, one thing he's taught me, which is sort of ingrained in me, which is why I speak so openly about my teachers, he's always said to me, never forget who helps you, never forget where you come from. Yeah. And so for me, this was an opportunity to speak about those teachers, because Miss Kinsella and Mrs. Pacey, I can sort of dual-handedly say have probably been the single earliest, and then because of the earliest, because the trajectory changes, doesn't it? And then,
yeah, of course it does.
Probably the biggest influences on my life outside probably my parents. Yeah. Teachers, man, massively underrated. Massively underrated.
What you need is there's two types of teachers. There's those teachers who are interested in your academic work and solely about it, and then there's other teachers who are interested in you as a person and your growth as an individual. And then there's some teachers just wankers out there as well.
There are some complete wankers out there. I can give you that much, Rob. There was one teacher. I'd love to see him now, Mr. Let's not go down.
Let's not do that, because that could be an
We'll save that for a different podcast. You know?
We'll save that first.
Yeah.
So you get up to, obviously you get up to 16 years old. You said you came out with all A's and decent grades.
Yeah, pretty much straight A's with maybe I think one or two exceptions. Went to college.
Well, yeah, I was about to say, where's the trajectory from life from there? Because I know obviously you've been handed a quarter of an ounce of weed and gone out, and that's all I know. Yeah. But where was college life after that? Where was the influences?
So I tell you what happened. My brother went on a right bender. My brother, bless him, he went down a really dark path for about 2 decades, and he's only just come out of it. But he started heavily drinking. Yeah. So all of my family heavy drinkers. All of my family. Yeah. None of my family kept their gears. It was just normal to be.
It was culturally, and it's just how the family was, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's just how our family was. We were publicans. My dad's owned pubs. My uncles owned pubs, as I said, and so it was an inevitable natural progression. It should have been the path that I walked. More, it's more surprising than not that it hasn't been. If that makes sense. Yeah, of course it is. And then my brother went heavy into the bottle. Became a heavy alcoholic, cocaine and drug abuser, violent, a lot of offending, coming home regularly with his shirt soaked in blood and fighting and stuff like that. And I was looking at him, it wasn't so much what he was doing made me think I don't want to do it. It was seeing what he was doing, how it was affecting my dad's health.
Yeah, exactly.
So my dad's health started to deteriorate, watching my brother deteriorate, if that makes sense. Yeah, of course. And my mum said to me, he can't handle he can't handle it twice. Yeah. Jab, cross, left hook. He can't handle the uppercut. One
so basically, you're not going to go down that path.
So it was a little bit like, I don't want to blame. It was more like, I don't want to blame for that sort of thing. Yeah. And then it was a combination of seeing our brother go down a crazy one and just not wanting to be around him. So thinking, I don't want to be like that. So I don't want to be around me. And at that same time, I would meet someone who would be another massive influence in my life. At college, I'd meet Singhs.
Okay.
So how that came to be was I was at university messing around. I won't tell you what I was doing at university. I'm at college.
You say what you want to.
I'm at college.
Yeah,
My boys. We decided we had some friends who were at university. So we're at university, sort of just messing around, visiting friends, and we got invited to go to a Sikh lecture.
Yeah.
Which is a concept that was just. Now it's so familiar, but the idea of it at the time was so novel. It was like, oh, there's going to be a lecture about Sikhi, right? And so we went to this lecture, and it was by a wonderful Singh who I've not met, I think, since the time, but whose name I hear about sometimes, called Amandeep Singh.
Yeah.
And he did this lecture there.
Trying to get hold of him at some point.
And it was the first time I'd heard anybody speak about Sikhi.
Yeah.
I didn't know these words like Katha or Rainsby or Kirtan. I didn't know these words. I didn't know Murmantar, didn't know Simran, didn't even know the names of the gurus. But I went to this more on a cultural basis. We were at a time, you have to remember, when if we saw a Sikh on TV or Kabaddi, we were like, look, there are people on TV.
Yeah,
So it was a big deal on Channel 4.
On Channel 4, Channel 4.
Exactly. So there's no YouTube, there is no choose what you will. It was just... So seeing a Sikh on TV, you know, or even a Hindu or a brown person, it's like there are people.
But that was not before goodness gracious me the real McCoy. You're like, that's Mira Sayal. She's
Exactly.
Anyway.
So going to a Sikh lecture, it was so much more of an exciting thing than it is, unfortunately, as it should always be, but than it is right now because it was more novel.
Yeah.
I remember going to this lecture and. Doing Simran. I wouldn't know it was Simran, but I would later be told it wasn't because I'd learn about it. And we would do Simran on Guru Ram Das Ji Maharaj. Guru Guru Vahe Guru 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 Ram Das Guru. I still can hear it in my head today. And I just remember being at a lecture and I was just crying my eyes out.
That's what happens.
Oh, bro, I haven't thought about it for so long, but hearing that Kirtan, right, hearing that Shabad, and I was just crying my eyes out, and so was everybody else. I was looking around, I was like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
It was a mad one, right? And then I found out afterwards when he stopped the tape, it was a tape play. And I was like, bro, man, you don't know where I've come from, you don't know my family, there's no way I can bridge the gap from where I am to where you are. You know, all my mates are Gore, basically, all from Essex, we're all just basically we're not going to be going to the God on a Friday night, we're going to be wearing we're going to just be dressing up as getting drunk, basically. And he turned the tape off, it was like he was hearing every doubt in my mind. He said, that Kirtan was done by a bunch of white guys in America. I was like, what the hell? Even a bunch of white guys in America. And I was just like, it just blew my brains because that people have traversed that ocean. You know? And so then from there, I went to a boss camp where I met Jagraj. And then Jagraj would just change, would be like this another meteor that would just.
How old were you then?
So that was 17, doing A levels.
Okay.
I think second year.
So 1999.
Sorry.
1999.
Yeah, 99 boss camp.
Yeah.
I went there, and then it was at that camp that I met most of the people that are my best friends even to this day.
Yeah.
I've been going to that camp and then meeting Jagraj, and then Jagraj was just this. He was just everything that he was just this really charismatic, cool, badass person, but also just 1 year ahead of me. So only a year ago he was where. So it was you can do this. If you can do that because he's done it this year. That makes sense.
What uni was this?
Sorry.
What uni was he at?
He was at Oxford University.
Okay.
I met him at the actual camp.
Okay.
At the Sikh camp organised by the British Organisation of Sikh Students, who are just as badass now as they were then. They're just amazing experience. So I met him at that camp, and it was everything that I needed because he was this person who was feeling everything that I wanted to feel. And so up until this point, going to the clubs, doing the things everyone was doing, it was all just a facade. And I was so weak, I even knew it was a facade. I wasn't even bought into it. I was not even sold. I was still driving the car that had no petrol in it. I knew that it was a facade, and I was pretending, and I even knew I was pretending. So I was like, this is cool, this is crap, carry on doing it to myself. Everyone else is doing it. So it was so fake to me that I even knew at the time. It wasn't like looking back on it. In the moments of it, I knew this was rubbish.
Yeah.
I remember puking up on my 16th birthday. Me and my dad, my brother, just getting hammered at Bollywood's on Rumford Road. Just getting hammered on Budweiser. I had like 7-8 bottles of Budweiser. I was a bit of a lightweight.
Yeah.
And puking up, going, what is the point of my life?
Yeah.
At 16 years old, vividly falling asleep at the bus stop. I go past the same bus stop most days still. On my 16th birthday, puking up. My mum there with her hand on my back, not having a go at me because it was just what everyone was doing.
Yeah.
But it was just, and so I knew that it was just bullshit. I knew that I wasn't in a good place, but everybody else was, and they were smiling. So I just thought. But I met Jagraj, and Jagraj was like, I remember him saying to me once something. He would say to me, we were talking about the third form of Guru Nanak, who again, these are all wizards now, but at the time I knew nothing. Yeah. And he would say this. He's got this song called the Song of Bliss, and I'm like, what the hell is that? And we were talking about it, and he goes, when you read this Shabad, you'll feel bliss. And I read it because I was in such a negative place. Obviously, what you are is a reflection of what you're going to experience, right? And he would look at me and goes, don't you feel bliss? Because he was in a state where he would read that Shabad and he would feel bliss, right? And that's honestly, and he was like, Singh, are you not in bliss? And I was like, what? He goes, I'm confused. Because he was confused. He's like that angel that was just floating on, And
he's taking that drink, he's flying, you're still on the floor.
And I was just like, bro, can we speak good morning English?
Yeah, of course you can.
There's one glance that will look down upon all of you indiscriminately.
Yes.
He showers us all of this grace. But those who've got love, depending on where you're at, will be determinative of what you. And that is just. And so I look at he was just that guy that was all in.
Yeah.
And so because he was all in, he was feeling that total immersion. We were dipping our toes in, and we were like, why am I still not getting that immersion, if that makes sense? And to be fair, that's just as relevant to me today as it was then. So then meeting Jagraj and then seeing him just fly, basically, I was just so grateful to watch him fly.
Yeah.
People think he flied when he started the Basics of Sikhi channel years later. He was flying then because he was just buzzing and popping off the walls and just like in this really positive. Like I remember just watching Dubai and crying his eyes out. Yeah. And that's really what I value. That the experience of it, experiencing that Sikhi. Yeah. So then I met Jagraj, and then I met another Singh who changed my life again. See, this is why I say I'm not fantastic. I'm just a consequence of all these wonderful guys that have changed my life.
But everybody has foundation, right?
Okay.
So the foundation is what brings up the steady structure.
Okay.
And all this is your foundation.
Yeah.
So to say that you're not fantastic, that will be for the people who are watching this to make that judgment.
Okay, well that'll become
what I'm
very
saying
apparent.
Is, everybody has, it says in Gurbani, right? So we are all flawed. We all are subject to flaw. The only people who aren't is the Guru and Parameswar themselves. So none of us, can sit here. I don't think there's ever going to be any guest on here that sits there going, I have done everything right in all my life. But for me, it's not a shame to talk about those things that have developed you to what you are today.
Definitely.
Because if it wasn't for those bad moments, you won't be at that point. You look at somebody like Gordaraksh, you look at Sajjan Tug, you look at these people who are Bhumia Chor, you look at all these individuals that Guru Nanak Dev Ji saved. And Guru Nanak Dev Ji turned them from what was metal into gold. Basically, they were the touchstone. And that doesn't take away anything. That gold at that time could go, I wasn't always gold, but you are gold now. And this is the reason why we're on here. So as much as you're sitting there doubting yourself, going, I'm chatting all this and people might be listening, but it's made you what you are today. And that's why we're here today.
I'll agree with you on one point. You're not
going to disagree with me. I'm going to pay you afterwards.
I'll agree with you on one point. We are. It's clear to me that we are a consequence of our experiences and of who we've been influenced by. That much. It's going back to what my dad said about never forget where you come from. But
exactly.
At that camp, I'd meet Amandeep Singh.
Yeah.
And so Amandeep Singh is like an older brother that has been with me since that camp. In fact, one of my best friends.
Yeah.
Honestly, diamond. And why he was perhaps most important to me, I mean, despite sitting down and actually saying, Panch Kakad.
Yeah.
No, Panch Kakad, Amrit, Guru Nanak Badshah to Guru. Like literally, he would go through. He had the time and the patience, amongst others, many others, in fact, but him in particular, because he was there with me every day. Locality being because he lived nearby as well.
Yeah.
He would teach me the basics of Sikhi, if you will.
Yeah.
But most importantly, I'd say he introduced me to the next great teacher that I would have in my life. Sant Baba Jaswant Singh Ji Maharaj.
Yeah. Somewhere I'll jump on.
Anji?
Somewhere I'll jump on, like Clifton Road.
Anji. So Baba Jaswant Singh Ji is, what can you say, man? That would be a podcast in its own right, or several 100,000 podcasts maybe.
Yeah.
Baba Jaswant Singh Ji is like, they are what we would say in Sikh Dharma, a sant, one whose complete form is a representation of truth, the form of truth. And I would meet them, and I remember going to see them and just feeling utterly crappy in their presence, because they just live to serve. They just have cured thousands of people of physical illnesses through their medical service, to the free hospitals and the dentistry and stuff like that they've done. But also they would cure them of their mental ailments through giving them advice, and perhaps most importantly, they would cure them of their spiritual situations through giving them blessings. I remember being in Babwali and just again crying out, saying, "Is it if I come and see you when I've got problems?" And they would look at me and they would say, "I like you. You can stay with me." Because they had that.
Yeah, because it's just the way they were. You know, I remember that in Leicester because I used to be there. But we used to go to them when they were little. When we were little, sorry, at Clifton Road. Mum was used to go and see them. And it was the first time I'd heard a son talking English, and I was like, "Speak English. What's going on?" You know, so yeah, I can imagine.
Just on the blessed topic of Baba Jaswant Singh Ji, they're one bachan that I think I would never ever hear them on the stage not take the opportunity to say. In other words, they would say it all the time. They're one bachan which they would say all the time, and it's only becoming a sort of, I'm getting to understand it now. It's so simple that you could miss it. They would always begin the gatha by saying, "We are so lucky to be in the company of Guru Granth Sahib Ji.
Yeah.
We are so lucky." And I'm like, why are you saying it, the same thing over and over again? The reason they're saying it over and over again is because they could see in the Sangha there was a lack of gratitude, a lack of appreciation. And perhaps even to this day, it will still be something that I always say, as we're going to do a discourse at the beginning, we'll say, we don't think you're here through your own efforts, you're here because of the blessings that have been allowed you to come and walk here.
Yeah.
And so Babaji would invite us to come, and we would go and stay with them when they would come, when they would be in the UK. They would listen to their discourses, and they would give us blessings to do gatha as well. Jumping many years ahead before they left this world. But it was Jagraj then. Jagraj started doing gatha, right? And I wasn't doing any talks then. So 5 years ago, I wasn't doing anything, Rob.
Yeah.
I was just a friend trying to learn. 7 years ago, I'd say I was just a friend of Jagraj, and just learning from my own sort of life.
Yeah.
And then everyone would say, like, you should do some talks. And a funny little story, right? So I'm working in my office. My office is right next to Karamsar Gurdwara. So I'm house in this Gurdwara, right? And I'll tell you how it came to be that the next jump in my life would occur would be, I was at least doing these talks. I was doing my work on the computer, and the Gyani comes from the Gurdwara and knocks on the window.
Okay.
And he goes, "Come in." And I was like, "All right, came outside." And there was 100 school kids that were there.
Okay.
And some kids had turned up for a school trip, but the guy who was supposed to show them around wasn't there. So I'm like, you come in every day, show them around, like have a little chat with them. And I was like, all right, that's actually how it went down. Because I had no business, I had no interest in doing that, and I had no skill set for it, nor was I worthy to do it, nor am I still I'm still not worthy to do it. But it was a situation thrust upon me where it was a question of send the kids home on the bus that they come with, or show them around. And so what happened was this really interesting. I showed these kids around, and we sat down and took them into the kitchen, and I saw these kids, their faces literally exploded. They're like blueberries. They just exploded when they saw the size of the batte. They saw the size of the karchia. They couldn't compute it. They were literally, when I say some of them were like convulsing. They were like, "Whoa! Oh my God! What the hell? Are you cooking those?" And they literally were freaking out.
You should have told them we cooked the kids in there. That's what you should
We should have said, we could have played a trick on him. I could have been like, yo, if you're naughty,
That's where you go.
this oil.
That's where you go.
That's a different Dalabad from a different time, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, we won't go into Sikh history, but
Well, yeah. So there
the
are.
kids freaked out, and I realised that we've been massively desensitised because we've seen these we've seen these kitchens from such a young age, and I was going home and thinking I really enjoyed having a small part in these children connecting with something that we take for granted every day. And so I did another one. I was pretty much doing school talks with kids from junior schools.
Yeah.
For like 2 or 3 a week. I'd pop out in my lunch hour, or I'd do it every day. The guys at work were pretty safe. I was running my own department at the time, so I had pretty much my own control over what to do, booked appointments out, and I was doing sort of 4 or 5 of those school talks with kids a day, just really enjoying telling them about the free kitchen, saying things like, imagine if there was free food in your house forever, and then just watching them freak out, things that we take for granted. And then I called Jagraj up. I go, look, bruv, I've got this little thing going on here. Could you come and have a look?
Yeah.
And then Jagraj, I love him so much, he came down and he watched the talk and he told me a few pointers about it.
Yeah.
And he goes, and he said to my missus, he said, we're gonna get him doing Qatar one day.
Okay.
And she was like, nah, this guy, you don't trust me, he's not gonna. And then it was Jagraj doing Qatar, and he said, and this is the power of Qatar, brother. It'll change your life in a second. You don't know what you're gonna hear, right?
Yeah.
Up on Jagraj Singh was doing Qatar, and he told this story, and it was this that changed. This particular Qatar again would change my life again. And this is the magic of life. You just never know. Or was it Tom Hanks says in what's that one with Tom Hanks where he's with all those different people? He's in the army. Forrest Gump. He goes, life's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you never know what you're gonna get in any given day, right? And he's talking, and here I am doing school talks with kids, and he's talking about Singhs Singh, right? And he says something, and I'm like, oh, Jagraj, you're going to get yourself in trouble here now. He goes, a lot of people say that Singhs Singh has passed away. And a lot of people say that Singhs Singh is still yet to come back. Yeah, well, whatever you say next, you're going to get in trouble. If you say he's
I know, yeah,
you're going to get.
If you say controversy either way.
I go, how have you ended up as a lawyer? I'm always watching where the line of inquiry is going to go.
Exactly.
And I'm listening, and I'm sort of starting thinking, what are you going to say next? Yeah, and he goes, I'm not saying they've passed away. I'm not saying they'll come back. My point is this: I'm going to crack on and do what I can do, either way. And if they come back, I'll step aside.
Exactly.
And if they don't come back, I'm still doing what I've got to do. He goes, look, the point he was making was that he's not worthy to do the Qatar. But what he's going to do, he's going to crack on and do what he can until someone worthy, who is worthy, comes along to pick up the hammer. Who can actually wield it, who is worthy, right? Using the analogy of Thor, right? And I was like, damn, this attitude of I'm not worthy to do Qatar, it's not really about being worthy. No one's worthy. It's about doing what you can do, and then if your older brother comes along and starts doing Qatar, then you can step back because you're going to take my slot.
So you're not looking at me?
No, I'm looking at you because we're having a conversation, and I said it might come up. But does that make sense, Rob? And that was why I got the itch out to start doing talks, because I realised that we need to sort of understand that no one's worthy. I'm definitely not worthy, and my shortcomings, even to this day, are a constant reminder to myself in my own mind that I'm not there. But I'm going to crack on, and as long as people are responding to that and they're giving me their permissions to carry and their backing, and then when the big boys decide to get off the bench or they come back and Singhs Singh comes back. Yeah, slight digs at my brother there because he's
exactly.
When my boys, when they get in the game, then I can just step back because that we know who's really worthy.
We're retired, man. We're old. No, so that must have been, what was that? About 7 years ago. You're saying that was.
That was 7-8 years ago. It was Jagraj. He was at Park Avenue. He was at the Mega Beat. He had the microphone. He was talking. He goes, "Sing, come and tell a story."
Was he already? I'm guessing that's the basics time already.
He was cracking on with basics.
Because he's doing some really good work with the basics.
Yeah.
But his best stuff was Hyde Park, without a doubt, for me.
You think so?
I love that.
It's interesting.
For me, basics is basics, and it's giving a summary and a small little push into this big room, which is Sikhi. And you're just creeping the doors open for people to go explore if you want. But for him to go toe to toe with some of those people at Hyde Park, from other faiths, from other denominations, and know enough. The issue is you can talk about Sikhi, but you need to know what they're talking about, what they're saying is relevant and true, because they can swindle you with anything. But Jagraj had the knowledge to know what that person was saying was right and what it wasn't. So I saw a couple of his talks where somebody's questioning, and he's like, and they'll say something, and Jagraj goes, actually, it doesn't say that, your faith says this. And you've got to have that sort of knowledge. And that, for me, was big. It was encompassing that he wasn't ignorant of somebody else's views, but he had enough knowledge to challenge them on what they were saying when they were trying to just twist the truth a little bit and try to gain an upper hand, and then he just set them back down. For me, that was, and Guru Gobind Singh states within their 52 bhajans that one should learn about the knowledge of other faiths and their dharam granths, not to accept their dharam granths. I'm not saying to follow them or adhere them, but you need to know the knowledge about them, and that which is in line with Gurmat you retain, and you use as Brahmans, you use that as source material, and that which is against Gurmat you discard, but you know about it in case somebody tries to challenge. And for me, that was one of the biggest things I saw with Jagraj. I knew him, but not to the personal level that you knew him. But for me, that was the big thing. I remember talking to him about that. But yeah, I can imagine what sort of an influence he had.
Watching him fire up like a fire, and watching that whole thing happen was, and then it was that gatha.
Yeah.
Listen to that, and it was just the blinkers. I was like, you can do this. As in, like, if you get, and then I'm going to go see, and then the next step. So it was at that point I sort of opened up.
I was about to say, at that point, did you make up your mind or go, I'm now going to step on this path, and how am I going to do it?
It wasn't quite that. It was at that point I realised that this stuff is for me. This is for me, and I started listening. I started listening to Gatha more seriously rather than just whimsically. And I started doing talks to elder kids. So I had kids from senior schools come to the Godalai. So the Godalai became my dhammasala. Literally, this bit's done. It was a place for me to train this thing. When Jagraj came and watched me do the talks, and he sent me his points, and I'm really the 2 or 3 things he did to change, which I implemented. But then he sent me a message a few weeks later, because I have a laugh with the kids and joke around with the kids. I think that's just a really beautiful thing to be around children and have that chance to just engage with them, make them feel good. And if they leave feeling beautiful, that is Sikhi in many ways. Yeah. That is the teaching. If they're feeling their hearts filled with warmth. So we'd have a laugh and a joke with the kids. And he sent me a message, a text. I've still got the message on my phone. And he said to me, Singh, I did a talk and I adopted some of the things that you did. And I tried to play it cool at the time, but at that point I was like, "Boost, Jagraj Singh, my brother." He's like, "You're using what I did. Yeah. I brought you down to give me a tutelage." Yeah. And he actually said to me that he adopted that sort of funny way of imparting information in a sort of joking way about the birthday being so big and stuff like that. Yeah. And it was listening to him do that talk and him say, "Look, it's not about being worthy. I'm not worthy." Talking to the camera, but really talking to me. And I was watching the video. It's about doing what you got to do with the time you've been given, and knowing that if someone better comes along, don't be hooked to that thing, that you can step back. Even to this day, if I get invited to go do a talk somewhere, I go, have you had this person first? Have you had that person first? Because as far as I'm concerned, if you've got the opportunity to call upon great people, call them. If not, I'm there to pick up the mantle. If there's a gap there, we can fill that gap. Yeah. Does that make sense? Yeah. But then Jagraj wasn't in any way. He was more an inspiration to me. Yeah. But it wasn't his gatha really that I'd listened to. It was never. I never actually really dedicated myself to this to his gatha. What he did was inspire me to search for who to learn from. Yeah. And it was actually just by cosmic coincidence that Jagraj Singh a few weeks earlier had started uploading gathas on. Yani Sukraj Singh Ji started uploading gathas just by pure. I searched Japji Sahib. I wanted to learn them. I thought if you're going to start anywhere, start with the Japji. That's where you got to start. Everybody wants. That's where you got to start. I was driving towards the city. We were doing the homeless service, which we still do to this day. We used to go on. Me and my mate Tony would drive to London and take the food to Trafalgar Square, give it out to the. There's a collection point where people would come and we'd give out samosa. Yeah. And on the phone, YouTube would just come out on the phone. And I googled it, and a week early, because it says when it's been published, Jagraj Singh the week earlier started uploading 10-minute clips of Gatha, because that was all you could do on YouTube.
Yeah, of course, there was a time.
It was 10 minutes. And so Sukraj Singh Ji, I keep saying Sukraj Singh Ji, Sukraj Singh Ji had started, I never met him, never heard about him. So I started listening to his Japji Sahib Gatha and making notes on it. And I've still got some of those notes now. And then I listened to the whole of his Gatha. I was just hooked. That Gatha changed me, massively changed me. When I say changed me, it's the way that I look at everything in life, there's a lens on it now. Yeah. And it's like, like a filter on Instagram. I've got this permanent filter now. Whatever I see is judged through the thing, what I've learned.
That's the lens, isn't it? That's the lens you look through.
Yeah, that's how I know it's become part of me. Yeah. Whatever is happening, whatever I see, it's seen through the lens of what the perspective of that Gatha gave me. Yeah. And I heard that whole Gatha. I loved it so much. I listened to it again. I just listened to it again after that. And then I had the pleasure of meeting Sukraj Singh Ji at a camp once. He'll be the first to tell you this. I love him. I love him so much. I love him dearly. But he'll be the first to tell you that he's very what's the word he uses? He goes, I'm very distancing. Yeah. So when I met him,
he keeps people at a distance until he knows you.
Yeah.
And he makes sure that you try to come into his proximity. It's like, what are you doing? Who are you? Sort of thing. But once he knows you, his heart melts. Yeah,
that's exact. But I'm the opposite. Yeah. I'll just give you everything when I see how I am with you on the first day is how I'll be with you. Just more and more of me. Like 5 years later, I'm just exactly this. That's just my personality. Yeah. And my missus says to me, you shouldn't be like that. You give everyone to everything. That's just my nature to just. That's just the way that I am. So because I've seen this guy for hours. So as far as I'm concerned, I know him. He's my mate. Yeah. So I go, why are you going to go? Sukraj Singh, how you doing? And he's looked at me like, who are you, mate? I was like, Bud, I've watched all of your Gatha. And he's like, okay, well, I'll see you later. And he just walked away from me. Yeah.
And, that's like getting rejected. You were like a groupie then, weren't you?
Yeah, I was. Pretty much. And I spoke to Jagraj about him, and nobody people know this, but Jagraj Singh Ji would listen to his Gatha as well. Yeah. He would actually listen to all of Sukraj Singh's Gatha, and that would be an authority for him. I didn't know who this guy Sukraj Singh was, but he did this camp, and I went to his camp, and I don't know where it was at the time. I think it was in Wales somewhere. And I met him again, and over the years I got to know him. And then the funniest thing happened. I was at a camp, and I'll tell you exactly how it was. I was at the Scottish camp in Scotland. I'd never done Gatha before. I think I'd done a few talks at the Godda, like I said, with the kids. And I had this itch on my mind to start doing Gatha, but I needed to go to Duxar, and I wanted to learn. And I said to my missus, this is the honest to God truth, if you want to believe in miracles, I did ask to Maharaj, I want to go to Duxar and go and learn something, and go and learn from someone who will be able to take me under their wing. Yeah. And then I went outside, and I was quite in a reflective state. My singing was bless her. I said, look, Jav, I need to go to India for a few months. Can you give me your blessings? Can you take care of the little one? Would you mind if I just leave? Yeah. And I want to just go to Punjab, and then we'll just spend some time at Duxar and just learn. Yeah. And she said to me, yeah. She was like, I was like, wow, I'm there. That's the biggest obstacle. You can't use to try and find happy. You can't break if you're going to make something happy. You can't go on a foundation of resentment behind. Yeah. That's not Sikhi. No. But she gave me her blessings, and then I was there, and then Sukraj Singh came around the corner, and he came straight towards me, and he put his hand on my shoulder, and I didn't say any. And this is a guy that doesn't approach people. And talk to people, and he put his hand on my shoulder, or I certainly felt like it was like on me, but on me, like he gave me a juppi, and he said to me, sing. I'm going to teach you everything you want to know. I didn't even ask him. Right. It was flipping. It was surreal. He said to me, and that was it. He put his hand on my shoulder. My missus came over, and he turned to my missus, and he said, "We're going to make him into a Gathajic." As if, and I hadn't asked him to. And I
some people can see, like you said, they see the reflection within others. You have a mirror. But the mirror's dirty. You just need to clean up in order to see your own reflection. That's what some people do. So they see that and they go, "There's no different in me that I see in there. I just need to make sure that I polish that and get that out there." That's all.
That's exactly what happened. I'll tell you no word of a lie. I was so emotional that night, and for me, there's so many examples that I would later learn from the research. Yeah, I did ask him, Maharaj, take me to the Diksal, and Maharaj brought the Diksal to me.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was just like, there's so many examples of Guru Tegh Bahadurji Maharaj when the Sikhs come to Maharaj and they say to Maharaj, look, this Sikh doesn't go to a Dushnan.
Yeah, exactly. And then they could go on the Jamuna and come down and form a cows.
Exactly, but tell that's a shorter version of it.
That's the short. No, there's loads of stories. There's that. There's a story of Rabia. Rabia's on her way to Mecca, and then Mecca she decides to save the use her hair to get the water from the well to feed the dogs that are hungry and thirsty and dying of heat, and then the Kaaba moves and comes to her. So there's so many stories where there's loving devotion.
Yeah, that was my personal.
And God sent it themselves.
Yeah. If you gave me $10 million and say bet this would happen, Singhs Singh is not that kind of person to open like that.
No.
And it was just for me that I was like, Buds, this is what happened. I don't think we had such a distant relationship at that time. I didn't even tell him what happened. I couldn't tell him what just happened, and I was like, okay, because he's a very very reserved person. And then we became really close, and I went to go see him, and I've been to see him many times since. And I'm really really grateful to have him in my life.
Yeah.
So then Singhs Singh would teach me how to do katha.
Yeah.
He would give me the basics and he would test me. I went to go see him and he said, look, do katha now. And I did katha for in front of him for a short period. And he told me what mistakes I'd made, and then he gave me the blessing to start, and said to me, do Japji Sahib katha. And that's how we started, and then that's how I met you, bro.
Yeah, I remember. Leicester. But I'd met you before that.
Sorry, let me rephrase it. That's when I started to plague you.
No, you didn't play me at all.
I told you, bro.
You didn't play me at all.
I was on his case, man. I was on his case every week. I was finding him up for questions. And
before I get to that, obviously you've taken this change within your life.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
Massive change within your life. At what point did you go, right, I'm here at 16 years old, I've had 6 or 7 Budweisers, I'm being sick, my dad's like this, my elder brother's going through this. At what point did you go, I'm now going to change, or start walking along that path where you go, Sikhi is my next thing? I know you've talked about with Jagraj's influence and things like that, but the adoption of the Sikhi Swaroop is a separate thing altogether, because from what you're saying, you're like, I've come from a family where this isn't normal. Yeah, the Gurdwara's fine, whatever, the parents have been good, they've got me educated, they've helped me all the way through. But then all of a sudden you're going, I want to keep on the star and Dari. And what was the effect that had on family, and how did they take that?
Do you know what's really interesting? Because I'm listening to you say that, I'm stepping out of the conversation and looking down in. I've ignored all of that, and I don't know if I did that.
Yeah, whether that's a conscious thing or an unconscious thing. But for me, you're going from, I was on weed, I had 6 or 7 bottles, and you're just like, I was with your garage, I'm doing this, and now I'm doing katha. You're like, yeah, but your form has changed.
Exactly.
You have changed as a person. And was that a form that changed prior to your marriage? Was it after you were married? If it was after you were married, what was the views of your partner on you going towards that direction as well? So, for me, I'm just like, there's this big metamorphosis of who you are that you've missed out. If you don't want to talk about it, I understand.
No, I'm happy to talk about it. I'm happy to talk about everything, because I think we should be open and honest. Yeah. If we're trying to, the main point of katha, in my humble opinion, is for people to leave any discourse and reflect inwardly, honestly. Yeah. And if I'm not willing to do that, I think if you tell others to do something and you're not doing it yourself. But why I comment on that is, it's actually interesting to me that perhaps the most obvious thing is you talk about, I managed to have avoided all of that nearly subconsciously. And I'm glad you pointed it out, because we shouldn't avoid it, we should talk about it. So going to that camp and meeting Jagraj, one of the biggest things, this was at the time when I sort of massively changed my physical appearance and changed stop drinking, stop doing recreational drugs, stop eating me, and all the aspects of it, that the physical aspects, the habitual aspects. Yeah. One of the biggest things that Jagraj did to influence me was he didn't judge me. At that camp, I was like, look, I don't give a crap, man. This is who I am. What? Because I come from a family where pushing your chest out is the only way to live.
Exactly.
And it was when this day's on the pool table and I ain't getting off the table, you're going to lose. and just hustling people on the pool tables at the pubs,
Yeah.
and in the clubs, having the circles around you on the dance floor. You know, I was still the best dancer in the room even to this day. So having that attitude, I don't care what you think of me. And what I loved about Jaguar, and I can still see it in my dorm room. I was breakdancing and messing around doing bhangra, like all just acting like a rebel. And Jaguar didn't look at me and judge me. And he didn't judge me. He just looked at me and he smiled, and his smile penetrated me in the sense that I knew he could see that it was all just a facade. But he didn't point it out and go, look, stop being a plonker. He goes, look, Dorothy, I know where you're at, Singh, don't worry, I've been there. But I think anybody not living the path that knows about it, that eventually walks it, knows that the previous was a false, right? And he just gave me love. And at that point I realised that I want to be like you. I want to be like you, not because of this. You have to understand, there was no Basics of Sikhi then. Forget all the channel and all that stuff and the gata. I just wanted to be the way he was. His fragrance, his love. And I wanted to have that. And he was a different kind of older brother. And it was the fact that he never judged me, and he showed me that love at that camp, at that boss camp, together with many others there, but in particular Jagraj. That I went home, and me and my two best mates at the time, one of my best friends at the time, Amandeep Singh, is still my best friend today. We were on the phone together, and he goes, I'm going to keep my kiss. I'm going to grow my hair. And I was like, me too. But how are you going to tell your dad? Because his parents were more supportive. Telling my dad, I don't think I have to this day told him. put it that way.
It's a topic of not discussion. It's the elephant in the room. We've never had that conversation. I'm just doing it.
But my mum, she could see that I was growing my hair. So we're going on to sort of first year uni now. Over that summer, between that boss camp in the summer and going to first year uni, I was growing a beard, and then my hair was a bit messy in a ponytail. And my mum said to me, because she just wants me to be happy, right?
Exactly.
And I was, as far
that's
as
all
she was,
mums want to do, isn't it?
Well, that's all they want.
There's an unconditional love to just go, I just want my children to be happy.
Yes. And you have to understand, she only saw me happy because in the smile I was putting outwardly, right? So the smile that everybody saw, that even I saw when I looked in the mirror, but I knew what only because I knew you weren't. And so she said, Amandeep, you haven't got to grow your hair to love God. I don't know where the answer came from because I didn't know anything at the time. And I went, but I haven't got to cut it either. And that was it. That was the conversation we had. She was like, if that's what you want to do. And then I went to university, and then I spent more. And then there was Sikhi week every week at university. And I'd go to the lectures, and I would just listen to everything.
Which year were you at?
I was at Queen Mary's, University of London.
So who was, obviously a Sikhi week every week, who was initiating that? Do you know who was on?
So I was in a Punjabi society.
Because
I hadn't quite made the transition yet. So I was organising the gigs and that. And then the second year I was like, you know what, I was still going to the gigs because I was making, it's at 2 foot in 2 boats, right? I hadn't quite had the example of Baigo Dasi yet.
Because they say that now.
They talk about having, if you have your
two feet in 2 boats, and where you're going to fall.
You're gonna. But at this point I was doing great. I was having a great time at night, reading the Japji reading Kirtan Soila at night. No, sorry, rephrase that. I was going clubbing and then coming home and then doing Kirtan Soila and then going to sleep and then listening to Relas. And then that was where the physical form started to change. So first I was giving up meat and then alcohol and started to keep my gears. But again, it's the examples that you have in life will make your life easy, right? Because Jagraj had done it already. Every time I had one of these things to sort of these obstacles to face, there was references to guys in my immediate company that had just done it. So the example I often talk about is Roger Bannister. You know
the guy doing the 4 minute mile.
Exactly, Rob. So this guy, right?
See, I don't even run, man. Look at my dad.
But for the benefits of those listeners, do you want to share the story about the 4 minute mile?
No.
Go on.
I don't want to. Carry on. You can do it. It's your talk.
Right. So Roger Bannister is someone I learned about 2 or 3 years ago. I went to Tony Robbins' talk. Who's another teacher, another amazing teacher I've experienced in my life. But essentially, go back a few decades. For a few decades leading up to I think it was the 30s when this actually happened. You have to take the date on it. People were trying to run a mile in less than 4 minutes, and nobody can run the 4 minute mile. And this guy Roger Bannister, he trains for months and months and months, and he breaks the 4 minute barrier on the mile. He runs a mile in under 4 minutes. And that's amazing. He gets all the credit for that. He's been the first guy to run a mile in under 4 minutes. But within 2 months of him doing that, 37 other people have run the 4 minute mile, right? And so the point made by the sports psychologists and psychologists generally is that nothing changed on the geography. The metric hadn't changed for the mile. The timing system hadn't changed. The technology of running hadn't changed. The ground hadn't changed, nor had the air temperature or all of the humidity. Everything's the same in 2 months, right, across the world. Nothing globally is going to change that quickly. Yeah. The only thing that changed in those 2 months was that people believed it could happen. Yeah. And so the belief carried them to 4 minutes, sub 4 minutes, over and over again. Nowadays, kids at college are doing 4 minute miles for sports day.
I can't do it in my car. I get knackered.
But I think, I didn't know it at the time, but having seen Jagraj, I mean, everyone knows the famous story about Jagraj. He went to Boss Camp, which is a 5-day camp. On the first day, he gave up meat. On the second day, he gave up alcohol. Yeah. On the third day, he committed to do his nittanam. On the fourth day, something else. On the fifth day, he said, I take Amrit. Yeah. Well, he couldn't even read good, but so it was like 1, 2, 3, 4. So when you had that sort of level, that jardi, that jardi, meaning like ever rising, steeper, great rate of growth, right? So everything that I faced was easy. And so that example of belief, like Maharaj spends 10% of Japji Sahib talking about manne ki gatte jeko kehe over and over again, manne surat hove manne marag thak na paye, manne to believe apne marag de vich koi dakavat nahi ho sakta.
Nothing should stop you, nothing should prevent you.
Exactly.
No obstacles impede you, nothing.
Exactly. So it was Jagraj again, every time I had an obstacle, I wouldn't ever speak to him about it. He'd already done the deed by doing the deed.
So his actions were enough.
His 4 minute mile essentially. So I kept my gears and then did that and then went through that process and then going every night to see Baba Jaswant Singh Ji. They would be in the country for extended period of time. So after
school. So where were you living?
Here, in East London.
And you'd go all the way to South?
Oh man, when Babaji was here, it was no journey, man. Every day after college, I had a little Golf TDI, beautiful car, P-Reg, banging. It was you know.
It sounds like an in-betweener's car.
No, it was a wicked car, bro.
Okay.
I had that. I B21.
Okay.
And Valley Jack felt live on direct. And then it was at the time, just at the time when Bhangra was synergizing with R&B, and it was RDB were doing their thing, and then so I'd finished college, I'd finished university, I'd go home. We'd jump in the car, drive to Southall, hour and a half. Me and Indip would go, or I'd go pick him up from his fruit and veg shop, which he had at the time. And it was just wicked, man. Go see Babaji till 2, 3 in the morning. Just listening to them. Didn't really get much because my Punjabi was what it is now.
It's the brain, isn't it? It's the essence. The essence is what you take in.
And Indip would say to me, Indip said, this is so many things I've learned from him. He would say, if you don't understand anything, just understand this. That's the perfect environment to do Simran. So just shut up and do Simran. If you're not connecting with it, just understand you're sitting in the company of saints. Just do your thing, innit? And so that would always be an amazing fallback. And I sit there like, so every time we'd go, we'd be productive. And so he would come for like Babaji would come for 2 or 3 weeks. Every night we'd go see Babaji. And then Holi started to grow my hair, and then stop doing Punjabi stuff at the society because I just felt that it was not in keeping with the image that I'd now adopted, and I was sort of taking my foot out of that boat, and then sort of stopped doing a lot of the things that come with that scene. I won't elaborate on that any further. Enjoy your own conclusions. And then started really concentrating on learning more, and then I met. And then at that point, I decided that I want to keep my gear. So me and Amandeep, we started tying a turban. That was really hard for me actually. Because I had this understanding, and I think it's a false understanding really. We put too much pressure. I had this understanding that before I can keep a turban, I've got to be a jiu-jitsu expert. I've got to wield a sword like Rambo. So I've got a sword like Conan the Barbarian. I have to have everything off by heart, and there's this really really unfair thing that you've got to be the Guru Khalsa that we read about. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't aim for that.
No,
but that's not a place you've got to be at before you can, if that makes sense. And I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about this. I heard that if you wear a bana, for example, you can't take it off ever once you put it on. It's like, how does that work when you have a how does that work?
Exactly.
So I think a lot of this stuff that is misconceptions that have been thrust upon people caused me a lot of fear. A lot of fear was there, and that for about 5 years stunted a lot of growth. I didn't make any progress. And then after that, about 5 years, something twigged in me, and I started doing these talks, and then I met my Singhs, and then that was where I took Amrit. I decided that this is a path that I want to walk together. So I spoke to her. She's actually she was introduced to me by Amandeep Singh. It's Amandeep Singh's sister. And then
so she knew all about you.
She knew
because which is good. So so it wasn't any sort of surprise. It's like, this is where my growth has been, and this is where I've come through, and this is where I've ended.
Exactly, because she probably had, it's interesting, I'll ask actually, but she probably met me as a Monna.
Yeah.
When I was.
That's what I mean. She's seen you grow.
Yeah. I don't remember I can't remember chilling out at the time, but then when I became a Singh, then I said to her, look, I think we should take Amrit. If we're going to get married, we should take Amrit before we get married. She's like, shut the front door.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was like, it was a bit of a shock to her at the time. And I was like, look, what are we living for, man? Like, we know it. Yeah, we know it's true.
Yeah.
Let's just what now it seemed I have so much sympathy for understanding where people are at that haven't gone that path.
Yeah.
But equally, I understand that it's the only path. But I'm equally can completely understand why people struggle making that.
Struggle to make that.
So take that step. Because I was there. I was like, but one day I just woke up to it and I was like, what else am I living for? Like, what else is there for me to do? That's the most important thing. So I phoned her up and I said, look, we're going to get married because it was being arranged. Babaji arranged our wedding. They actually said to me, we'll sort your wedding out.
Yeah.
So it was a match, say a match made in heaven.
Yeah.
It was made by those that live in heaven.
Of course.
And then we got married, and then we took Amrit together at Babaji's Astan, which I thought was really a blessing to go full circle through Babaji's Sangat and then become a Singh that way. Yeah, man.
So it's obviously massive change. You've gone from being in the Punjabi society to dossing, going out, doing whatever. How did they take that change? Because all of a sudden you're growing your kids, your daddy's growing, and before you know it, you go, I'm adopting at the start. How did you personally feel? Did you feel? Because I remember day one in the police for me. All of a sudden I've got this uniform on, I'm wearing the star, and I'm walking in the avenues of lots of Asian families and things like that, and I remember how I felt. Because I was just like, some people would feel massively full of pride, and mine was anxiety, because he's just like, I'm the first one in this county wearing the star and this uniform. And I'm guessing for some people, once they adopted the star, there's an element of anxiety. It might not have been, it might have been actually an element of pride, this is my uniform, this is who I am, and I'm fine. But how did those people around you feel, and how did you feel?
It's really interesting, actually. The people that I was hanging around with and things that I was doing meant that when I made certain changes, I no longer sat in that company.
So you distance yourself, or they distance themselves?
I wouldn't necessarily say I distance. If you're clubbing, for example, so I knew all the doormen of the clubs in Leicester Square, Hippodrome, Café de Paris, and they were all my uncle. They were my uncles. They're still my uncles that are running those doors now. They're not sitting on the doors. They own the companies that run those doors now. And if you're not going there anymore, then their opinions are no longer expressed. If that makes sense. So there was a lot of that, sort of a change of that. And then, to be honest with you, I'm going to be completely honest. I think there is a lot of anxiety, but what I've learned is that 90% of the time, the anxiety is unfounded. So anxiety itself is always there, and I'm not questioning anybody for the difficulties, but oftentimes we fret about a problem that doesn't exist.
Yeah, well, that's what it is.
So when I'd meet people that would be anxious about them, they'd be like, oh, well done, you're really happy, I'm really happy for you, but you assume the worst.
Exactly.
Because that's the nature of the mind. The mind exists to keep you safe.
Well, like you said, you've grown up in a time of society where at school, humour was the thing to do in order to eradicate any possible thing that could happen. So you're like, anxious, this could be a problem. If I act a bit of an idiot, have a laugh, it's gone. And humour is a big thing for me in order to get over, not anxiety, but you're just like, I'm going to break the glass here and just go forward. But for me, you know, it's a big move, adopting as a star and doing things like that, you know. And I can just imagine, for some people they don't. They're just like, no, man, I was walking tall and proud. I was completely fine. There was no issues, and I loved it, and I loved every moment. For some people, there's an element of anxiety because you've come from a background which is completely different to what you're about to morph into. And I agree with you. It is unfounded because 99.9% of the time people are going to see you and be happy for you. And then those people whose opinion doesn't matter, you don't see them anyway.
Well, this is the point I was going to make. I've come from a family where nobody would have thought it was going to happen, right?
Mm.
And we're talking about heavy drinkers,
Yeah.
right? And drug abusing. For example, my older brother is an alcoholic and a drug abuser. He's been sober now for a number of years, but for many years he was just lost to us, right?
Yeah.
But I had the most anxiety about how people would act. But in reality, I faced very, very little negative sort of comeback or feedback or condemnation. And what the point I'm making is, if in reality most people wouldn't.
Yeah.
You'll say to me, but Singh, you don't know my situation.
Yeah.
I use my example only to illustrate the fact that in reality most people just wouldn't. It's a social construct of the mind.
Yeah.
What we're getting to understand about the mind as human beings, yeah? Sabe, you get the dog? He's about to burst.
Dog's coming in.
It's all right. The mind exists as a tool,
Yeah.
right? We've become the mind. We've become an association of the mind, right? But in reality, the mind exists to serve us. And great philosophers like Paulo Coelho, not Paulo Coelho, the other guy, Eckhart Tolle, right?
Eckhart Tolle, Spinoza, all them, yeah.
Eckhart Tolle's doing an amazing book called The Power of Now, which I'm currently sort of experiencing. I don't say reading, I say experiencing.
Yeah.
And he's elaborated that the mind is actually a tool, right?
Yeah.
The nature of the mind is to keep you safe.
Yeah.
So, for example, the mind in caveman days was saying that don't go outside there because there are dinosaurs, you might get eaten.
Yeah.
So the idea of the mind is that it's a tool to
I'd be worried if the cavemen were there when the dinosaurs are there.
Well, not the dinosaurs.
You just remind me of Carl Pilkington moment when he believes that the film 6 million years BC is real. And he's like, no, the dinosaurs were there, were cavemen, and then just take the piss out of him for an hour. Ricky Gervais does.
All right. What
I don't know. The saber-toothed tiger.
The saber-toothed tiger, or the apes that were around
at
the time of the dinosaurs. The mind was there to keep them safe.
Yeah.
There's no dinosaurs now, if there ever were. There's no saber-toothed tigers now. But the mind is still playing its role, just like the appendix is still there.
That's what Vedanta talks about that in the dark, where the superimposition of the rope becomes the snake, and you're worried about the snake, but the snake doesn't exist. There has to be a certain amount of agyan or ignorance in order for there to be a bit of light to see a rope, because if it's complete vidya,
Exactly.
there's nothing. And
Exactly.
it's that sort of thing, it's a superimposition of
Yeah.
there might be some trouble here, there might be
Exactly.
something.
Point being that people are living their lives fearful of taking a step because they're scared of a reality that in most situations, 99%, if not 100% of the time, won't manifest.
Yeah.
But your mind only conjures the worst case scenario because that's what it's doing, its job. Problem is, the mind which is supposed to serve us, we've become a servant to the mind.
Yeah.
So the mind's projections have become what we follow, like dogma.
Yeah.
When the mind is supposed to digest actual dogma and give us the gyan.
Yeah.
When the mind, does that make sense? We become servants to our mind. And so in reality, just do the deed, man. Like, be your best, be the most progressive version of who you want to be.
Yeah.
And there was a study done by of nurses that live on the care, providing care to patients on the way out that are going to leave this world. There's a name for it. It's called. There's a name for a very specific type of care provided at hospitals where basically you've been assigned that you're
They're going to die.
I forgot what it's called now. There's a name for it. Anyway, it escapes me. Point being, these guys are on the way out. They're gonna leave the world very shortly, and these nurses are seeing the people that are leaving. They're providing this really specialised level of care, and they would notice a recurring pattern of the things that they would talk about and the things that they would say. And they had like 5 that were the top 5 things that were being said over and over again as people were leaving the world. One of them was, I wish I'd asked her out. Like there was a girl from 50 years ago, but there's a regret. But one of the regrets was that I wish that I hadn't worked so hard, because the mind had created this construct that was your life. And then only in death they realised that was actually a falsehood, right? And that wasn't the purpose of life.
Yeah.
And equally, there were this point about asking a girl out wasn't about actually the relationship. It was about understanding what was I so fearful of.
Yeah.
That there was no need to have that fear. In reality, that was just the idea that I was held back from doing whatever it was. Now, I'm not saying that you should. This isn't about relationships. The point being, it's about fear.
It's the anxiety.
Yeah, and that asking a girl out in that scenario of that guy on the ward, thinking about his first love, looking back on 50 years of life, it's really a reflection of you and your relationship with yourself. Going, look, don't be afraid of what might become of you becoming your best person.
Yeah. Just
concentrate on becoming your best person.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. And like my uncle, who's who I'd be behind the bar with him, he would. I've become this Singh now, which is I remember seeing him. He's this hard man, and he's probably the person I've got one of the most. I draw the most courage from because of the stories of what he wanted to go through in younger years. He's a really hard man. He was on the British judo team, and he's just a really, really inspirational figure. And he saw me just giving the biggest hug, and he's like, "You're my favourite grandson." He would say, "You're my favourite nephew." He would say, and I'm like, "Really?" I was expecting you to sort of go at me and stuff like that, or sort of distance yourself from me because he's getting drunk every night. But in a drunken, he'll phone me in the night and go, "Look, I love you," because his way of saying, "Look, you've done good." Yeah. And I just think how scared could I have been, for what reason, innit?
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, but I can understand that, but that's. I've seen it the other way. I've seen it the other way with people we know, people the other way who've gone and took their own with them, and their family have distanced themselves from them and things like that. So there's that level of anxiety that some people have that this might happen to me. You never know, and it's just that sort of thing. Because I'm sorry, I know we were talking about where you got up to, and I was about to start a couple, but for me that was you've gone through a massive change, and I think it's important, especially if somebody's watching this and they go, actually, I'm living that life that he lived before, or I am that uni student, and I've got to that point where I don't want to take any more pills. I don't want to do this stuff anymore. Fed up doing that, and he's turned his life around, and he looks like this. How did he do that? And I didn't want to miss that out for that reason, because I think that's quite impactful.
Do you know what, Rob? I'll elaborate on one thing, and I'll tell you this as it was. At university, I had a friend of mine who was very close to me. I had a lady friend of mine at university, and when I tried to keep my gears the first time, I ended up cutting it because of social pressures. Because at that time I was trying to add my feet in 2 boats. I was going out and I had a certain look, short back and sides, shock waves in my hair. I often talk about it. Moschino t-shirts and Paul Smith jeans as go out, and I really enjoyed having that lifestyle. And when I started to grow my hair, I remember that some of the female friends of mine would be like, because they didn't know there was a transition. They'll just look at me in a certain way and go,
"Bit scruffy today."
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I remember cutting my hair the first time, and I was talking to a Singh about this at the time, and he said to me, "Have you done a das? You don't keep your kiss. It's a gift. It's a dart." So we had these 5Ks, right? Yeah. And not many people know this. You obviously will, because you're like the legend, right? That is Gurmat Vichar. But he said, of the Panch Kakar, which we often see as labelled together, the Shiromani Kakar is your guess, the highest of the Kakar. They're not equal. Of the 5Ks, the Kashera, the Kanga, the Kirpan, what am I missing out? The Kara. The Kashera, Kirpan, the Kara, and the Kanga. They're all sub, and the most important is the gift of Kikes, which is why it's on, because it's on your Shiromani, And he goes, "Have you done Ardas to Maharaj?"
It's the only thing that's bestowed to you by God.
Yeah.
The others are given to us as, Kashara is given to you, Kara is given to you, everything now. But the only thing that's given to you by Parameshwar from the start is your kids.
100. Yeah. So I did that Ardas to Maharaj. Yeah. And before I did that, I'll tell you the truth, the anxieties I had, and I'll be real about it. I remember having nightmares about keeping my guests. It was becoming a stress to me because I wanted to make that transition. And Jagwaja made it real for me. As I said in the example, I believed it could happen because he was a guy from a family that wasn't that way inclined, shall we say? And he was he sort of became a revisionist and showed that you could do it. But as I was trying to do it, I cut my gears, and that was the way it was at university. And then what happened was I did that at Adas. And then upbeat, Maharaj Gepanal, everything became very easy. And I was like, what am I worried about? And would you believe it, bro? Like months later, as I'm growing my gears and everything's easy, I had a nightmare about cutting my gears.
Wow. Yeah.
And I wake up and I remember reflecting, going, how easy have you made it for us, man? It's like I've gone from having nightmares about keeping my hair. Yeah. How much of it is it that the idea of doing it was giving me nightmares? Yeah. Now I'm in a place. I'm having nightmares that I might accidentally cut it. Yeah. Is it like I woke up? Oh my God! Thank you, Maharaj. Completely. Thank you for this gift. Yeah. And it's just like that's where Maharaj is. When Maharaj says Atam Jane Sagal Basta ke bhi, isn't your defeat or Manajit there Jalajit, na? When Maharaj talks about this, we often think we've got to become eye of the tiger. It's not defeat your mind in like become like an iron. It means bestow your mind at the feet of Maharaj. Like go before Maharaj, and then they will defeat. Because I'm not a strong person. But Maharaj, they took away that dukh and made that same path sukh. Yeah. And I just thought that was sick, man. That the fact that I'd gone from having a nightmare about keeping my gears to a nightmare about cutting it. It just showed me how easy Maharaj could make things happen. And there's a lot of guilt then, bro, because everyone was congratulating me about keeping my gears. Yeah. And I had a lot of guilt because I was like, bro, you understand, I'm the guy having nightmares about keeping it. Maharaj has made it this way. And I was like, oh man, you don't understand. So people kept saying, and in the end I tried to explain that I've not done anything. And then that would get you more praise because people think that you're a really humble guy. Yeah, and then they're like, what the hell, what'd you do, man? I'm nothing in it. Listen to me, go, wow, you're a really nice guy. I was like, oh. So then I ended up just stop talking, and then you just keep it quiet to yourself, then you really. Yeah. And then the words Maharaj Di Kirpa means something different to you. Yeah. And you.
The grace of God is personal, isn't it?
Yeah, man.
Oh,
talking to you now has brought back a lot of these memories, man.
It's good. That's why we're here, to reflect. Right, you've got to that point where you said you've started talking about doing the Katha itself.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I met you before that. I met you with Bob Hastings. I met you in Endip. So I met you first time there. So you were already in the presence of Satsang Gita. I saw you like doing the Seva Sadhus and things like that. So I think that was like 2012, 2011. It must have been around then.
Do you think so? Far back as that?
Yeah. Okay. It's around that time because Bob Hari Singh ji were doing a katha of Friji sloks from the Langarag, the Gurdwara. Okay. Because they were doing that, so that's around that time. 10 years. And you two came down. I can remember you two and Bob just doing that. And then the next time I saw you properly was Bob Hari Singh's Barsi in Leicester. We were running the store for the books, and then you're like, man, I need your books. Sakraj told me, and I was just like, yeah, and I was just like, okay, the last time I saw this thing is with Bobji, and it's come from that. But the next time I saw you, you were performing the Katha, but you're doing that for the Basics of Sikhi, under the guise of Basics of Sikhi. Can you tell me how you ended up under Basics, or how you got into? Obviously, your link with Jagaraj, I understand. I understand Jagaraj Singh was under there, but at some point you would have formulated the decision to go, can I work under this banner? While Basic Singh was working under Seek to Inspire banner, and obviously he's taught you everything. So how have you adopted this spontaneous approach? So,
I'll be honest with you, people ain't necessarily like this, but I'm going to just tell it, I genuinely believe it, so I'll speak the truth. Yeah. I don't really care about the banners.
No, neither do I.
I know you don't, which is why on this platform I just couldn't care less about the banners. Yeah. With the exception of okay, so I don't care about the banners. Yeah. Sukraj Singh's Ganiji gave me Agya to do the Gatha, right? And then for me then it was just about, okay, I'm a businessman, right? Yeah. So I want to just do it in the most efficient way possible and the most effective way possible. Yeah. So then it was about, okay, if we're going to do this, and hopefully the Sangha will give their sisa, they'll give their support, they'll give their blessings. It was about what would be the best method to do this. Yeah. And then the natural progression to that was because I had a link with Jagraj. Yeah. And obviously he had just passed from this world in a physical sense. It was a way for me to continue that seva that he was doing. Not that I'm worthy of
honour his tradition.
Actually, I take that back. Honour his work. I take that back. I can't continue what he was doing. That's not what I meant. Yeah. But how do you put it? following his footsteps, if that makes sense. I can't do what he did, and I don't think anybody. I think what he has done is stand alone more than anybody could ever. If you look at, Gary Gulwansinji is an example, right? They're following the model, the template that he set up for online Gatha. That for that ripple to have gone across the ocean, and now Babaji's obviously seen that effect, and they were linked Babaji Gulwansinji, who I've got a lot of love for Gary Gulwansinji. What Jugaraj has done has single-handedly changed everything, and I think anyone that does what they do now is it's essentially connected to what he did.
It's a copy and paste.
Yeah,
that's basically we're trying to. You copy paste, you amend a bit of it.
Yeah.
But we're trying to use the template that he has set up.
Yeah, exactly. So it just made sense to try and follow in those footsteps.
Yeah.
So I reached out to the guys at Basics, and then Amandeep Singh is my brother.
Yeah.
I love him. He's such a beautiful soul. I know everyone. He's been so open about his mental health journey.
Yeah.
And so he in his own words he'll say he has his own demons he's got to deal with. But I don't see the demons there, mate. He's just a wonderful soul.
Yeah.
A beautiful, warm being to be around. He's always been very supportive of me and helped me, and a guy that I can phone and ask questions to. So he was at Basics as well.
Yeah.
So Amandeep Singh, who I recently met just before Jugaraj passed away, he was a student of Jugaraj Singh he was a student of the Vidyala that Jugaraj Singh had set up the school. So it just became a natural thing there. So as a businessman, I approached it on the premise of, look, we're going to do this Gatha. So then we started these 1 minute clips.
Yeah.
Of then just need so we did a Gatha, me and my mate Tajinder Singh, who lives down the road. He was basically, we formed a little team, me, Tajinder Singh and Joginder Singh, who's the Bhatti Singh, my friend. And then we decided that after the Gatha, we're going to take a clip of it, 1 minute, and we're going to put it out.
Yeah, I remember that.
And then we didn't know what we stumbled across, and it became this thing that just...
It sort of just viraled out, didn't it?
Yeah. And then we were these clips, and then the Madhya Kepan the Sangha just came, they were so supportive, like on a Thursday night, we'd have like over 100 people at Goodways Gurdwara. If you go to Goodways on a Thursday night, you're not looking at a lot of people at the Gurdwara, and it was just like, this clip thing's quite big, and the clip thing became... I think as big as the Gatha.
Yeah, that's how
people haven't got an hour perhaps to travel to East London, but they've got a minute on Instagram.
But this is what we're finding within services, public services, government services today. The attention span of, it sounds really bad, the attention span of Generation Z and millennials that have come out is so short. But if you find them the summary of what you're trying to say within a 30-second to a minute clip, they'll take that. And they'll memorise it so quick. So having the little clips out like you did gave somebody a sample of what they needed, and they're just like, oh, that's fine. And they become most popular because they're easy to digest.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And I think Guru Nanak Bhatta taught us they would travel in the way of the people of the land.
Yeah.
They would teach.
You'll explain what needs to be explained according to the mental capacity or the way of speaking that a person wants.
Yeah.
Both Riji, like I said, does the Shabad Feeler of Abhi Bakawaj. So he does that Shabad for 3 different people. The first one he goes, tell me about a story, just something strange that's happened. So Riji gives that story and explains to him that there was a wedding and the donkey was doing this, the elephant was doing this, the crow was doing this. And he's very simple minded, and he's like, oh, this is amazing. These animals did this, he goes away. Next person comes in who's a Jigyasu, wants to learn. He's like, tell me something about how to control my mind. And he says basically the mind is like this. It's like the elephant. It's like this. It's playing these drums. These drums are your vices. So that same shabad was given to another person according to his mental intellect. Then the third person comes and goes, tell me about the div, the deities within the heavens. And he's like, same shabad again. And he goes, well, basically, the Hati is here, that's a form of this, Devta, this is a form of this is a form of this. And it's the same shop. So the same dish is being given to 3 different people based on the way that they understand things. But the dish is given as exactly the same. And I think that you've got to cater for your audience in the way that you're putting things across. There's no point coming across as an intellectual and you're going, I'm teaching a 3 and 4 year old, because
we were talking about that earlier.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
That's what true saint is. Like the perfect. Obviously, look, you're in the clouds and I'm still in the grass here. But so I can't read the shabads that you just referred to. I've not memorised those shabads. But even a really simple example in Japji Sahib, Maharaj says Kavan Subela Vakat Kavan, Kavan Tit Kavanavad. And they're speaking to the Muslims through the language Vakat. And in the same Bhakti, the same Vela, the Sanskrit, Kavan Subela, what time was it? Vakat Kavan, Kavan Tit Kavanavad. And it's like that they were just that was for the benefit of all, not just in concept, but actually in the rhyme as well. And I just in that way you see that they would do that. And that's an inspiration to us all about how in this current age, rather than saying kids have got short attention spans, what we should be saying is there are short attention spans,
but cater to their needs.
Cater to those needs.
So sorry, you're talking about Kamalpreet Singh and Singhs Singh, and you put these clips out.
So me and Jinja just sort of stumbled across it. We just sort of made it up. I'm just thinking business. This is our product. Sample out more business, not in a money making capacity. We're just trying to put what we do, because by obviously having left university, you become a solicitor, acting as a full-time legal capacity, starting building property. My mindset primarily is business shaped. I'm approaching Gatha with that skill set. That makes sense. So I'm thinking, look, that's how we approach business. We have to advertise our product, how we advertise our litigation. We put our cases out that we've succeeded on. I've got a similar problem, and then that's how you win, right? So let's put our Gatha out, and then we just stumbled across this thing, and we didn't know it was going to take off like that. And then the clips just started going viral. This went really, really big, like massive. To the point, I think the clips have probably had more influence in terms of breadth of people sort of taking the teachings of Guru Nanak Bacha than in the actual Gathas. But then similarly, they would support the Gathas because people would come and they would say, and then we'd put them online and stuff like that. So and then the Gatha started, and then Sukhrat Singh said to me, you have to do the full Gatha of Japji Sahib. I said, that's going to take 10 months. He goes, okay.
Exactly. What's the excuse?
Okay. So it's like, what? He goes. So then we started that. He goes, but once you've done that, you'll realise. Babadi would say, Ganesh Sukhrat would say, you'll realise that I'm a fraud, and that's everything that you need to do anyway. So your start will be your finish. And I was like, but I want to do this. What about this? And Jab Sahib, and I want to do this, and then Dasam Grant and all these other things. And he goes, look, just do Japji Sadhakata, and you'll realise. Firstly, that's everything you need to know. And secondly, you'll realise that I'm a fraud and I've taught you nothing, and everything was in Maharaj's. You're already doing your Nitanam every day, the Bani was already there. And he's never been a fraud. But I understand the concept of what he was saying, that it was all
predetermined, preordained. Well, this was going to happen, and it was in you anyway to do it. Just you needed somebody to go do it. I don't care if it takes you 10 months to do it.
But that sort of bhajan, that sort of wisdom, I truly believe this. Like Ganesh Sukhrat Singh, I think he's a throwback. Every now and again you get a throwback. He's not from
this time. He's come back to go, this is how it was before, and I need to reinvigorate this. Form.
Have you seen Night in the Museum?
When
like Alexander the Great comes back, he's just a throwback from like a different generation. He's like from 400 years ago, but he walks among us in a suit, so we think he's like one of us. But that guy is Ganesh is just If you're ever in town, if you're ever in Leeds, you should go and check him out.
I need to actually contact him, to be honest.
Yeah, man, that'll be a conversation I'll be looking to listen to.
See, the other thing I need to ask you about universities Instagram. We talked about that. The Two Singhs Podcast.
Oh yeah.
Tell me about that.
So, me and Andy, we're watching stuff on the TV. And we're talking about it the next day and having a conversation. And some of our friends are there, and they're like, because we have a lot of banter, we have a lot of laugh and jokes when the cameras aren't off, a lot more laugh and jokes we can say. And a few guys said, look, you should record this. You should record this conversation. So I said to him on this, look, people aren't quite having our views. Our views aren't out there. We'll look at something and we won't, and the view won't go out. It's for political correctness.
It's like Wonder Woman over there.
Like Wonder Woman over here behind the camera. But we should put a narrative out there. We should have our own space, so that if the situation should present itself, where the truth on a situation needs to be at least spoken, as we see it from the Sikh perspective, or just a truthful perspective, that we should have a platform upon which to do that. So the Singhs Podcast was created, and it's going really well. We started, I think, 6 months before COVID.
Yeah.
We were doing like one every couple of weeks, like a month or so, and they've been really well received actually. People just like the fresh conversation that we were having, sort of just talking real about whatever the subject was.
Yeah.
And then obviously COVID happened, and it sort of stopped. Really, during COVID we should have ramped it up, but I just took the time to learn to
whatever you needed to do.
Yeah, to do some other stuff. But it's still there in the background. People were messaging.
Well, is it coming back? That's the first question.
Yeah, well, it's not gone anywhere. It's still there.
Yeah, no, but at the moment we're only listening to archived data and talks. What everybody wants to know is when are the fresh talks coming?
I think we're going to get something. Probably going to get. We talked about it just the other day. We're going to get some. We're going to get some more topics going.
Well, that's the other thing. What are going to be your topics? What is it that you? I know you talk about just views between yourselves, but is there an aim and objective? Is it a certain type of topic?
Do you know what? I'm really glad you asked me that, actually. Naturally, my passion is started to veer towards progress within oneself.
Yeah.
So I've started listening and reading a wider sort of subject base of stuff.
Yeah. And
I'm finding a lot of that is actually just reinterpreting concepts that have come from Guru Nanak Bachchan many years ago, but with just new labels.
Yeah.
Like these concepts of mindfulness or well-being or being in the moment, being present, not being regretful of the past or anxious of the future, but being present right now.
Yeah.
That's just sehaj. That's just sehaj avastha.
Yeah.
And so I think that the future of the podcast, certainly something I haven't spoken to anyone about it, but I think the future for me for the podcast is going to be about interpreting better ways to be in a better place within yourself.
Yeah.
And I think one of the greatest speakers at the current time that I'm really enjoying listening to at the moment is Tony Robbins.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with Tony Robbins?
Yeah.
Flipping phenomenal, man. Absolutely amazing. Some of the stuff that he has imparted to the world, I think, has made this world a better place.
Yeah.
He's made a massive dent in the darkness in this world.
Yeah.
So Tony Robbins, people like Eckhart Tolle.
Yeah, I can't say, yeah.
Again, I mean, have you read about his spiritual
I've
enlightenment?
got his book. I am only about 10 pages in at the moment.
Okay.
And then I've just got, I'm trying to think who's just done a Netflix series that he's got books similar to that as well.
So Eckhart Tolle, man.
Yeah.
As you get into it, phone me. I'd love to hear you're going to read some stuff, and you'll just be like, you'll be having like eureka moments as you're reading it.
Yeah.
And I think for me, I think those are the sorts of conversations we're going to have. Even if it's absent a guest, I think just amongst ourselves, talking about what we're reading.
Yeah.
So have you heard about this thing called the superior mind theory?
Yeah.
Amazing. Is that Napoleon Hill?
I don't know who it is, but yeah, I've heard it.
Okay. So that I thought was flipping fantastic. Would you want to explain? You might as well explain superior mind theory.
It's your podcast, you've listened to it.
Okay.
Go on, say.
So this is wicked, right? So Bhai Gurdas Ji says, Ek Sikh, Doi Sat Sangat, Panji Parmeshwar.
Yeah, that's what
That when you have one on their own, that you're just a Sikh. When you have two together, then that is the Sad Sangat. You're in the company of the saints.
Yeah.
Because of what you can then create, yeah. And then Panji Parmeshwar. If you get 5 good Sikhs together, that is the Brahman. That is the form. That is God. But we're going to stay with the middle one. The Doi Sikh is the Sad Sangat one.
Yeah.
So there's this concept. I'm not sure who gave birth to it. I think it may be a current thinker called Napoleon Hill, but don't quote me on that. But irrespective. So there's the idea of the superior mind theory, right? Is that my name's Amandeep, right? If I'm good at law, for example, right, and you're Kamalpreet, your understanding of policing is second to none in this example of 2. Yeah?
It's normally none.
Okay, so you bring your skill set to me. We're going to give that numerical of 1, and mine's numerical of 1.
Yeah.
If we come together, the sum total of 1 and 1 is what?
2.
It's 2. But this theory is that when 2 people come together, you don't become the sum total of the individual parts. What happens is we merge and become a third mind.
Okay.
So this third mind isn't 1 and 1 together.
Yeah.
It's if you bring 1 and 1 together, it actually makes 11.
Mm.
It's just it becomes a superior exponential, right?
Yeah.
And so the idea is that when you come together with someone and you're aligned with them for something to be achieved, that we are far more than some of our collective parts are.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was powerful, man. The amount of times we've had a problem. I've come together with some of the Singhs, right? And we're just like, we're gonna smash this problem.
It's me and him brainstorming on the phone.
That's
what we do. You'll have an idea, bang, 2 minutes later, it's like, done, got that.
But it's not what you've done, it's not you and you together, there's a third mind, which is the sum, which is far superior than the combination of the two of you together. That's Kamalpreet Singh behind there. You might as well come on the camera and wave, no? You haven't got your makeup on.
No, that's it.
But like, that's the sort of thing I thought was really interesting, because we've all experienced that, where, but we're going to eat, what's for dinner? Good.
Ready.
What we got, is it Mexican? Alright, cool. You know what, we've been talking about you all this time, you might as well just pop in and...
Shall I eat now? Shall I make it?
But we're just finishing up recording.
Okay.
You're actually interrupting the podcast?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. She's been interrupting my life for 15 years, man.
That's the clip that's going out.
But the amount of what was that?
The subtitle of the two minds.
So like when I'm not disrespecting either of you, but together you are worth so much more than any of your individual parts.
Yeah.
And that is what when Bhagavad says Doi Sad Sangat, when the two of you come together, it's not two good Sikhs coming together, you become Sad Sangat. And I think
there's the Katha of Samgyan Good Washington Singh.
Go on.
Samgyan Good Washington Singh, obviously with the Jatha, they go and do Katha one day, but the rain is so bad that the tents and everything are coming down, so the Singhs are attending to them. Samji go to the Asthan with their Gursikh. They go and what they go and do is they go and do the Prakash of Maharaj,
right,
and then start the Katha. And the Singh says at the end, Maharaj, Katha the Kittiya, so we've done the Katha. It's only you and me here. And I said, there's nobody else here. And they go, yeah, what's your point? And they go, ik Sikh hum there. Apa the do baithe, apa the Sad Sangat there. The Sad Sangat like Katha karni. And that's what they say. They said the two of us are here. That's the Sangat, we're here. And so they say that because that was one of the things that they did. They quoted obviously Bhai Gurdas Singh Wala there, and they said this is what it is. We are the Sad Sangat.
But we all have that experience in our lives without knowing it. I'll give you an example. How many times have you been perhaps going back perhaps more to like childhood years, when you were really stressed out about something, right? And you've shared it with someone, and you've gone.
Yeah, but it's a problem. Problem shared is a problem half. They always say that.
That's an oversimplification.
Yeah, it is oversimplification.
In reality,
you're not supposed to be on the tape. There's no guests allowed yet.
Come on.
In reality, where that person solved the problem, it's not that person. It's because they couldn't solve it without your input on the problem.
Yeah.
And I think that sort of education, which I think is perhaps most valuable to a place where there's so much anxiety in the current world.
Yeah.
It's quite staggering that we have so much more available to every one of us. Like Amazon being an example, you can order everything and it will be on your doorstep within a few days at most. If you're late, if they're late, we're talking about days, sometimes hours on some of these applications, right? And yet with all of this availability and abundance, there is so much anxiety and mental unwellness.
Yeah.
And I think that we need to address that on the basis, like Mara says, Sarab Sukha mein pa liya, har jevad na koi. That Mara can there, I don't know if Sarab Sukha, every sukh, because
every type of bliss, every type of happiness.
Yeah, but har jevad na koi. Don't think for a second that any of this is on
Come
a level.
without God.
Or on a level of what you will achieve, which is why whenever we get all these things, it gives us a very short firework. But then it's the next thing, because we haven't quite had those
that's the. Have you seen? There's a program called Midnight Gospel.
No.
It's a load of actually somebody Duncan Trussell. It's his podcast that basically made into Netflix, but you don't have to watch it because it's just mental cartoon anyway. But they're talking, and the first episode is about the use of DMT or weed.
Okay.
And it says basically the bliss that you get from godliness. What it is that bliss is. They said, say you have weed or DMT. DMT is basically the thing that opens it up. So you take DMT, and what it is you're taking a lift up to that level of paradise or bliss. and all it does is just open the doors and you feel it, and then it closes the doors and you come back. So the bliss of Paramatma is that bliss.
That's really
it's such a good analogy, and the talk is just amazing. The podcast is one of the best podcasts I've ever learned so much from that podcast.
Wow. Okay.
But that's what he says. He says, so those people who go into narcotics and things like that in order to get that bliss, they're getting a temporary bliss, and what they don't realise from religion, or once they become one with the Atman, is that bliss is eternal, it's all the time. And that's I put a quote up not long ago where it said, in the Janam Sakhi, it says, Jari Rehe Dinarata Namakawadi. Gunandaji says, you know, you can take bhang, you can take all these things, but they're of no use because they only give you a temporary sensation. While Jari Rehe Dinarata Namakawadi, so they say that is the drug that you need to take, and that intoxication lasts forever.
Yeah, man, 100%. Like in a sort of Western understanding of that, is there is this complete obsession with the destination. Yeah, I want to be on a beach in Jamaica, drinking at the Copacabana Club, rum in a cold glass with an umbrella, and so the total consumption, the total obsession is about getting to the destination. But in an Eastern understanding, the bliss is in making progress on the journey.
It's the journey,
But when we oversimplify it to these memes of it's not the destination, it's the journey, we don't get the rust of it, right? But we know that when we objectify something, and we obtain the object, meaning the destination, that it doesn't give you that bliss. It's just like, as you said. But if we focus on that journey, that every single day we're going to chip away at our avguns, and tomorrow we're a better man than yesterday. Hey, I'm on the journey. That will actually become. Will become the bliss. So I'm an amateur. I'm just starting out now, but I look back on the 10 months that we did the Japji Sahib Katha, and the journey was bakshish, man. It wasn't about completing it. It was in my mind. It was about we're going to get there one day, it's going to finish.
Well,
right?
that's how
I look back on the
writing the book. It's exactly the same.
Yeah, man.
It's there's that goal when you first start, but then I realised as I've gone through the journey, this is what it means.
And I've learned that now. So now I'm writing a book. But I'm enjoying the process. I don't care when it finishes. It might not finish. The book might be longer than my life. I'm writing a book about Guru Nanak Bhai's Japji. It's about 600 pages now. And it's a combination of all different. Whenever I hear somebody speaking about something that's relevant to it, it goes in the book. And I think I'm about 650 pages now. And it's like a combination of all these great saints that I've heard, including a lot of the stuff I've learnt from the books that you gave as well. A lot of it, in fact. So thank you. But Gyani Kulwan Singh Ji, up in the Gyani Sukhwal Singh Ji, and whenever anybody speaks of the Japji Sahib, and I take something. But before it were about completing it. Now, whenever I hear anything about me to go in the book, it's a celebration that I've learnt something. I'm like,
Do you know when I started the Japji Sahib?
When?
I said to Singh, I said, I'm going to get this done. I'm going to get it done in a year. I started in 2004 because it's the journey. You know, it was initially this is going to take no time, and then I had to delve and learn myself again and again and again. And I picked up something else, and that's why when people vice versa, it's like, when's this going to be finished? I'm like, it will. You know, it will get finished. And I'm sitting there going, this year it will get finished. But if I learn something else in between and go, no, actually, I need to listen to this first and do this, it means more to me.
Another thing on that, you've said that, Prof. Like, honestly, when you say their name, genuinely, I feel like I've got a love for me, ignite genuinely. And I realised when I was younger and I was meeting Sukhwal Singh, it was about learning from them. It would be like sitting with them and maybe with a notepad and making notes of what they're saying, or like remember what he said. I've got to write it down because it was about collecting information. Like now, I'll go and see Gyaniji, and when I go to Leeds, we'll go on a family holiday or something. We'll go up north and spend some days in the countryside. I'll go and see Gyaniji at their house. And I'll just sit and be with them, and I'm realising that the fragrance isn't to write down. The fragrance is to smell and enjoy. Does that make sense? And I'm just glad I'm learning that now, not too late. So that now, if I'm sitting with someone who's Vidwan, it's not just to make notes. Like if I had your company 2 years ago, I'd have just been sitting with a tape recorder, and I've been right because you always found a knowledge for me and for the world, rightly so. But now, if I get a chance to just sit with you and be with you and experience that fragrance, I'm getting to realise that is the destination. That is actually where you want to be.
Yeah.
And a good who said this to me once. So with getting to Bride Singhs, right? They'll speak very great things, and I'm not saying that there are always going to be things I learn from them.
Yeah.
But I'll sit with them and just enjoy being in their company. It's not about collecting information anymore.
Yeah.
And so I spoke to one of the Singhs about it, and I said, what's the method to meditate? Like, what's the method that you should do when you're trying to meditate? And like, do you cross your legs? Is it the Mool Mantra? Is it the Maha Mantra? Do you sit down and do the good Mantra? What do you do?
Breath, do you do this?
Yeah. And they're all, I'm not questioning.
No, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But he goes, Aman, if you get a chance to sit down and do Simran, just shut up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Be grateful and chant.
Yeah.
But don't get caught up in all that.
Yeah,
just be
exactly.
grateful that you're actually doing the thing, innit?
You get the moment, be in the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's taken me. I wish I had known that 3 years ago, because, as I was saying, doing the Japis of Gatha, I was longing for the completion that I can say I've done it.
Yeah.
And I probably would have enjoyed it a lot more. And the Gatha probably would have been a lot more. There would have been a lot more rafs in that Gatha. As Ganiji would do getting good budgets into, they would do Gatha to an empty divan.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is you've only got another 10 months to start again, haven't you?
Sorry?
You've got another 10 months, so you can start it again.
There is.
And that's this one, Maskeen says within his Gatha, he says, everything I recorded in my first lot of Gatha is worthless to me, I'll never listen to it again. He goes, because what I knew then and the job that I'm doing now is completely different.
It's amazing.
Because you evolve yourself.
Mm.
By the Boston, he says exactly the same. You evolve, your Gatha evolves, you learn more things, you grow as a person, those experiences are shared. And yeah, it's just magically different. Right.
Go on.
Before we move on, I just need to ask you one thing. What I'd like, you know, your two Singhs podcast. What I'd like you and Amandeep Singh to do, if possible, is, considering the sort of background and things you're talking about, I'd like you to review some TED Talks. TED Talks are just amazing. There's some really good uplifting talks.
Okay.
And I could see the pair of you watching like a 15-minute TED Talk and go, let's talk about it. Let's break that down. Because there are some really good talks on whether it's geographical infrastructure, whether it's bringing around poverty, whether it's female genocide, whether it's helping people with mental health. And you know, there are so many good talks, but you lot could then bring it down into a Sikhi value and go.
Yeah, that's a really good idea, right?
And there are thousands of TED Talks, some amazing TED Talks. You know, we are told if we are to look at a level 3 competencies within the police, TED Talks is things to look at, because you're not looking at just growing yourself or your organisation, you're looking at what the greater impact is to the community. What impact is going to be there with an increased rate of inflation of 1.5%? Well, the social demographic in this area will suffer, more crime is likely, this is how, you know, but if you're not reviewing TED Talks, you'll be able to go, well, how's this going to impact us? How's this going to impact us as a Sikhi? How's it going to impact...
That's a brilliant idea.
You know, things like that, because you two have got that banter already, but you're applying it to something that's already been done on a stage. And you know, like Simon Sinek, people like that who are doing some really good TED Talks about wellness, how you uplift yourself, how you promote yourself, how you get ready for jobs, interviews and things like that. Yeah, those sorts of things are really wicked.
Yeah, well, that's a really good shout, actually.
Because you just sit there and go, I'll watch a 15-minute one, you watch a 15-minute one, you play the odd clip for a couple of seconds, and you comment.
I think that's a really good idea, actually. Speaking of which, I saw some lads do that to a talk that I'm not a big fan of this guy, but I have to admit I wanted to mention his name. Let's just move on.
No, go on.
No,
you don't have to.
This
Joe
is
Rogan.
I love Joe Rogan. I think it's fantastic. I mean, he's in a bit of hot water at the moment, isn't he? But I like his deliberate and honest style. You may not agree with him, but I do think he's honest about.
People are saying with like anybody like Ben Shapiro, where you come across, or when you talk to the young types of people, I like those sorts of things. I don't agree with everything anybody says. I don't agree with the liberals or the far right or the centres, because I'll sit there going, I don't agree with that, I don't agree with that, but I like listening to it.
No, I can accept disagreement, like with Joe Rogan, for example, right? I actually like the guy. I disagree with him a lot, but I like the guy because I think his energy is in the right place where he speaks a truth, the one that's known to him. Yeah. The other guy, I'm not so sure about. Ross.
Who's the other guy?
The other guy, the Ben Shapiro. I'm not. I'll tell you the
Ben Shapiro. I don't agree with. I'll tell you what I do. I am not towards the right at all. He is towards the right. But there are some points he makes that I sit there going, well, I can't refute that. And it's the same with everybody. Everybody has an element of truth. And the element of truth I'll accept from anybody. However, there are enough disparaging points that I have with everybody, and everybody agrees with. Forget that. We just have to talk about me posting things on Sikhism and snippets. I'll post something which is against the view of either some Hungs or some Sikhism or Punjabis, and they'll be straight out. So we all have difference of views.
I'm going to try and do my best to articulate this in a way that explains what I mean, but I think I'm going to struggle. Look, I think we should all be able to disagree.
Yeah.
It's fine. So, for example, I'm going to clarify and just disagree with you in this way. Joe Rogan, I disagree with, but I like the way he comes to what he wants to say, because I know from what place he is coming from.
It's not as arrogant as Shapiro, is it?
No, I don't even arrogance. I don't mind. For example, Muhammad Ali, very arrogant. Yeah. I disagree with some of the things he said, the way they conduct himself but I can disagree with him and still accept what he wants to believe, right? The Ben Shapiro guy is very dangerous in my opinion. I tell you the reason why. Not because of his being on the far right. I've got enough maturity intellectually to be able to disagree with his politics. Why he is dangerous is because, in my opinion, his energy suggests to me that he's coming from a dark place.
Yeah, he is.
And that's not so. You can be far right and not come from a dark place.
Well, he doesn't even consider himself far right. He's like, I'm a Jewish male. But he does come from a negative.
Okay, conservative. Let's
conservative views.
Okay, let's just say he has very, very conservative views, which are nonchalant and, in my opinion, quite narrow in terms of the focus of the benefit. It's not. He's not for the many. We can put that. Which Sikh Dharma would lean towards, in my opinion, for the many, right? 100%. We are for the whole of humanity, right? But what I think is dangerous is. I consider that there is a very negative energy from listening to him. And I mean that very specifically. I don't mean his views. I've already clarified. I can listen to Joe Rogan, disagree, and still be fine with disagreeing and listen to that guy. But I don't feel like I need to have a bath
of course,
or lie down after I've heard Joe Rogan say whatever I disagree with. Ben Shapiro is a very negative energy. And do you know what? I'm going to speak about this because I think
Ben Shapiro, Candace Owens, they all are that sort of thing.
I'll give you but Donald Trump on the right as well. I don't feel there's a negative. I don't think there's no energy there. There's not dark energy.
No, it's not.
Yeah, I mean
he does what he needs to do to get voted.
Yeah, exactly. Nigel Farage, right wing. But there's no dark.
No.
With certain individuals, and this is what I've learned. You've got to go with that energy, man. The energy is more important.
You are aware that Ben Shapiro is going to be reposting this little clip.
Look, that's. I'll give you an example in the Bunt, right? There was a guy in the. I'm a massive martial arts. It's been a massive part of my life, something which I haven't spoken about, but. Martial arts has massively influenced me from a young age. It was actually a commonality that joined me and my dad. It was something that we share. It was Bruce Lee, Enter the Dragon. The greatest movie of all time, and. It's something that we share, and so there was a guy that came out, and in sort of as I was coming to Sikhi, he came out and he became a massive influence and inspiration to all the youth that was sort of training and wanted to learn about martial arts, right? And I would go and become his student.
Who is it? Master Ho Singh?
You know who I'm speaking, huh?
It's not Master Ho Singh, is it?
The one who will remain nameless. And I'd go in and
Voldemort.
No, the reason I don't want to name him is because I learned from him, and so I've got that respect. And I said, the point being, he came and he propagated Shastra Vidya.
Nice. Okay.
And
okay.
And I was obsessed about what he would teach, right? And for me, it was, but I agree with his Vidya, right? And so, but that's just a really two-dimensional, black and white way to look at things, and as human beings, we're not black and white. We will take on far more than we know. And I would go to his West London class in Cranford and Hounslow. I would go to his Leicester class and Birmingham class. I was obsessed with martial arts, and this for me was this is our heritage, right? So I was going to Birmingham, Wolverhampton, Leicester on the weekend, and Cranford. That was on a Sunday, and on a Saturday he would do a West London Hounslow and a West London Slough class. I'd go to those, but that was I was just obsessed with this guy, right? But I was too young and naive to realise that there's a spiritual price that you pay as well. And being in those classes, I was fit. I was doing kickboxing, Western kickboxing as well. Those are intense fitness classes. You're doing squats, press ups, sit ups, sparring. But I would go to his classes, which was a lot of standing and a lot of theory. A lot of it is theory. A lot of it is theory.
Yeah, because we used to go.
A lot of it is theory, right?
Mm.
And I would be knackered at the end of his classes. And I realised afterwards, the environment was such a negative environment that it was. But I didn't realise what it was. Because I was like, I can bash the bag for 45 minutes. This is going to be easy.
Yeah.
And then I'd noticed you hear about so many Singhs going there cutting their gears, right? But as a young, influenced person, in my mind it was, but the video's good.
Yeah.
Right? We've got to be better than that as
social,
right? And so when we talk about these guys on social media, like for example this Ben Shapiro guy, right?
Yeah.
You said I can't refute his words, right? Why that's a dangerous way of looking at things, bro, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Right? Is if it's about the stats or the figures
Yeah.
or what he's saying, I couldn't refute anything that the
Yes,
video teacher was saying.
Yeah.
But all I can tell you is it was damaging me. And that's more important than the actual words being spoken.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people would go to those classes, go, I can't refute anything he's saying. You might dislike him to somebody outside the class, but you can't refute what he's saying. And that's really scary. Because when you start ignoring that we're human, we're souls.
We did refute a lot some of the things, but that's.
I'm sure you guys.
It wasn't me. It was Theta Sigma who was with me.
Jav.
And he was able to do that. He was able to, because obviously he brought out the Master's Presence. There were some things in that, and he was able to refute all those things.
The point being, I've got an ultimate respect for him as a teacher, right?
Yeah.
But I can't change the fact also that. Sorry, come and get him, son. That it was actually the truth be told, it was a very negative environment to be around. And that's the truth. That's my truth, right? If I went just on the what I could or couldn't refute, who knows where I might. But I had to stop going to those classes because ultimately, if putting it simply, if you're going to those classes to learn Dad to be the protectors of Dharam, but you're throwing yourself away, which a lot of people
can't lose a piece of yourself.
I mean, the stats will show in history, right? How many people have gone there and cut their gears? How many people have gone to those classes and that you'll know, especially in the Midlands, that have gone into a negative place, right?
Yeah.
So we have to be better than that in judging what is good and bad. If it's just stats, then people like Ben Shapiro will always win because you can't refute the stats.
That's the thing.
We've got to be measuring from a better standard, though.
Yeah,
because we're not grass on a wall. We're human beings. We're 90% water.
Yeah.
And I think we've got to change the way that we judge what's good or bad, rather than just whether you can refute it or not.
No, I 100% agree. I don't think you put it across in any way that it should be put.
And just to be clear, I got total respect for that guy because anyone that, like I said, my dad told me never disrespect where you come from.
Yeah.
A lot of the things that I learned from my dad, I have to say, they're stuff that I will still hold on to.
Yeah.
But I have to accept that it was a negative environment and that we need to be better at how we judge who we take as teachers.
Yeah.
Again, it's a grad Singh I'll go to, and I won't learn anything stats wise, but I'll leave better than the day I went.
Yeah.
And that for me is a true video style.
Well, that's what you're taking on in
and that's really Dharam, innit?
Yeah. Right. Last thing, man, because I mean, we're ready to munch a chat. Future ventures. Tell me about your future ventures. You've talked about a book, which might not come, which might come. But Singhs Podcast, which I'm hoping comes again. But what are your future ventures? What are you?
Do you know what, Prof? I am really grateful in terms of the success I've had in terms of the things that I've been able to achieve in business, right? Yeah. My real passion now is really delving deep into this massive khajana that I've amassed. And I've got so much text to read.
Yeah.
I've got all these wonderful books, and at the fore of that collection is the stuff that I've had on come through on the Sikhimus and Snippets podcast. You know your monthly subscription thing. I'm gonna just plug that right now, being transparent. Because I think the whole bunch should be signing up to this. So you've got this. This is not for your benefit.
Cut this bit out.
No, don't cut it out. I think this is really important. This is something that's really important to me. The Sikhism in Snippets. I mean these words literally. The Sikhism in Snippets subscription, which is something you can sign up to online on the Sikhism and Snippets webpage, is life direction changing. And I mean those words legit when I say that, because the texts have come from such authoritative sources and the information has come from such credible referenced sources, which is what it's all about in education, finding the truth, right? That I don't think there's any texts. I do not think there are any texts out there that are anywhere near the accuracy, the quality of information, and what we need in terms of what the bump needs right now. So in terms of future ventures, for me, bro, I'm going to go. You're not going to catch me telling you I'm opening a new business, because my immediate thing right now is things are going to allow me some time, and I'm probably going to go very quiet for a while because I've got a lot of stuff to read, and that's going to be my immediate future. I said to Jav,
that's a good thing. A future venture is self-reflection, isn't it?
well, I'm building this thing at the back. I've got this little thing which you can't see. I've got this little gym at the back I've built. All my stuff is going in the back there. And I'm going to put a screen on there. I said to the missus, if all plans go well, I'll just be spending some time. Yeah, man. I've got so much stuff. I've got some kajana there to get through. That's going to be. And there are a few business things that I want, and I'll give a little tinkle here. I've got coming on as well that I think are going to be. They're going to be quite helpful. They'll be quite fruitful hopefully as well.
That's awesome. Right. Plug yourself, man. Tell people about your social media, how people can contact you. Because there's going to be people out there that have heard this and go, I'm going through that, or I'm going through that, or I'm at this stage of my life and you've gone through it. How can I contact you?
Right, can I plug some resources instead?
Plug whatever you want, man.
Alright, I'm going to plug some resources. Okay, if anybody wants to find out about the journey of the soul, I would like to plug a few resources if that's okay.
Okay.
So on YouTube, my teacher Yanni Sukraj Singh has done an amazing 40-part gatha. Bizarrely, it's not on the Sikh to Inspire page. I don't know why it's not on the Sikh to Inspire page, or why it's not on Gurmukh Vichar. I don't know.
I've asked for it.
It's on it's under the subheading Sikh Inspiration. If you type in Japji Sahib Gatha, Sikh Inspiration, I don't know why who that platform is. If anybody wants to find out about who you really are inside, I would really recommend listening to that. It is by far the single most influential gatha that I've listened to, and it's by Gyani Sukraj Singh Ji. It's on the Sikh Inspiration page. If you type in Gyani Sukraj Singh Japji Sahib Gatha. If anybody wants to know about marriage, then there is going to be there's going to be a gatha that we're going to be releasing in Sikhi Marriage Week, which is going to go through the lawa in full, and that's going to be coming out probably in June of this year on the Basics of Sikhi page. If anybody has any questions, if I've said anything that offended anybody and you want me to apologise, you can message me on Amandeep Singh East London on Instagram, and that's basically it, bro. Thanks for having me.
No, it's fine. The other thing I want to add was, if people haven't heard on SoundCloud, Gyani Sukraj Singh is doing the Guru Subject.
Oh, massive! So
which is from the Freeport Varadika, which covers the Japji Sahib and is now up to there's 50 parts on, there's loads of other bits.
Gyaniji's currently undertaking a massive endeavour. I imagine it will take him a few years. He's going through every page, we can say, every Shabad of Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj, and explaining in English. It's the first complete gatha of Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj, and that is going to be such a khajana. That is going to be something else. It's not complete yet, but as you said, that's 250.
It's going to take a long time, but he's working through it.
Yeah, but that's going to be something. That'll be something for the ages. I think Gyani Kulwanti is completing theirs currently as well, aren't they? They're like somewhere.
They're on part 714 or something like that. Last time I saw them.
Ridiculous.
They've got some time. Right, before we close up, have you got any questions for us?
You've really made me think about some things that I haven't thought about for a long time. I want to just say something which is quite personal to the universe, really. I want to thank all of my teachers, from Mrs. Kinsella all the way back at school, as I mentioned earlier, to Mrs. Pacey, and all of the teachers that have come before and since. We are nothing without our teachers. I'm really grateful for all of the time that you have spent with me, and if I've said anything that offended anybody, I ask your forgiveness. I want to thank my brother here for having me on his show, and also for all of the books that you've given to this world, which I have read and highlighted and read again. Thank you so much for all your service, deep love to you.
I know, like I said, the books are plagiarised, they're other people's works, so all I've done is translate. I just want to say thank you very much on behalf of the Flawed, Foolish and Fantastic podcast. Thank you for being fantastic, and I really appreciate your honesty today. Your honesty all the way through, and this is why we want people like you on, because there is fantastic out there, as much as you might not consider yourself to be. I thought that was a really, a heart-moving talk, and I appreciate it. But no, I just want to say thank you very much. Why did you